Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Iron Canon Podcast, your home on the Star Wars Underworld Podcast Network for in-depth discussion on the lore, the High Republic, and the whole canon of the galaxy far, far away. My name is Matthew, and I am coming to you, as always, from Underworld North Studio here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. As always, I'm joined across the continent by your friend and mine, Mr. Joel Davis, and Underworld Orange County. Let's keep calling it that. Underworld Orange County. How you doing this week, Joel?
I'm doing good, and I just realized I did not post the video in the Discord for
That's
everyone
okay.
to see, so I'm going to do that while you talk.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, this week, we're coming about. What am I doing? What am I thinking about? I had a weekend. I went to a Valentine's Day party on Saturday, and I'm still paying for it because this coming Wednesday, it's just another Wednesday for Joel and I, for Joel and me. But
Single, and sad.
we're not salty about it at all.
No.
Just kidding. But for lots of characters in Star Wars, that if they lived in this galaxy, they would have had been celebrating with their significant other, their special someone or someones. We can talk about that. So this week, Joel and I, two single dudes, talking about ships and shipping. It's a lively topic, and it's a timely topic. It's going to be in big contrast to next week's topic. I'll tell you what that's all about after. That'll be great. Wednesday, I should say this Wednesday is also Ash Wednesday. I'm looking forward to that. It was always an important day here in Western Churchland, where I live. But it's also Valentine's Day, and so tonight we're gonna talk all about shipping, etc. First, let's do some plugs. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Ion Canon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD. And I don't know if it's still in our Insta stories. Probably not. I did posted a bit of things about the party I was at on Saturday. Showed the Off-World Bar, really great place owned by Stormcore Manor here in town. They got a Rancor. They got a Rancor head, and they got this drink. That's where Paul Simon party was in October. By the way,
Cool.
This guy. This is where we got this. This thing, because you're just giving it away. Then why not? So anyway, great spot, Off-World Bar. Also, I just want to while it's on my mind, I'm going to say it. Toronto Comic Con is in a month, just over a month from now. Really looking forward to that. Gonna hopefully, fingers crossed, about some panels. Otherwise, they've usually been pretty decent about letting Dom and me in with press pass, so that'll be fine. That'll be good. It is the smaller version of Fan Expo Canada, but definitely always some these days lately a lot better Star Wars content, especially since they get the people on the Fan Expo circuit, and so that'll be good. Claudia Gray is announced to come there, and that's gonna be a first. I don't think I've ever seen her in a Toronto con, so that'll be fun. Anyway, back to plugs. Here on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel, we got memberships and super chats. So comment away, support the channel as best you can. And any and all comments we do our best to get to, especially if it flows with what we're talking about. But if you do a super chat, that'll bump you up, as Dom and Chris and them say, to the top of the pecking order in terms of questions. So feel free to support us. Please do support us. Joel mentioned the Discord server, the Star Wars Underworld Discord. That lively conversation that I'm in. I mean, Joel's definitely in. You and Ben are keeping the lights on, keeping things going, commenting lots. So check the link down below. There's a minty fresh link, and you're click on it. You're in. Introduce yourself. Say hi. Tag Joel, and he will answer you while on stream. No, I won't answer you on stream.
I don't know. I'm a pretty good multitasker. You wouldn't be surprised what I can do.
All right, maybe challenge issued. The first person to go down there into the Discord and tag Joel while we're on stream and see if he responds and see what happens. Ask him a question. There we go. He's pretty good with that. I'm pretty good with that too, but Joel is better. I heartily admit that. Speaking of Discord, anything events happening wise coming up?
This Friday we are having our game night. We will be playing Overwatch 2 for the first time on the Discord. So be on the lookout for that. And hopefully we'll be once again restarting the Grand Star Wars Marathon. We're still at Young Jai Adventures. So yay, excitement. Who knows? Maybe by May May 3rd, we will get to Phantom Menace eventually after some Tales of the Jedi. We still have to go through Young Jedi Adventures, Young Jedi Adventure Season 2, Tales of the Jedi episodes, and then Phantom Menace.
Yeah, you'll have to wait then. That'll be more than doable, I think. So there we go.
I don't know. I mean, we go pretty slow with the rounds. So
To be fair, it's still only February. It's still only February, so you never know. So yeah, check that out. It was a fun time. I should make it out to one of these days. But Joel and Ben are always there hanging out. So Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy, and Joel Davis, the Discord guy. There we go. Joel Davis, the sequelist. That's all. Yes. I don't know. We gotta have a good nickname for you there. There we go. Fun times. One last thing. Wednesdays are also for comics. Comics are for this Wednesday, Dash Wednesday, and comics. Chris Abbott and I, we are doing our comics again. It's a normal Wednesday for me. It's not a normal Wednesday for him. Fair enough. Good on him. But he is. We are doing the usual comics reviews. Got Mace Windu from last week. Darth Vader number 43 and High Republic Adventures number 43, including a cover by Edmonton's own Sherry L. Variant cover there. So check that out right here on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and of course everywhere you can get podcasts. This past week, this was the big deal. Chris and I had Ethan Sachs on. He, of course, fresh off his Bounty Hunters run. Long 43 issue run, I believe 42 issues, I forget, can't count. But yeah, so yeah, really great discussion. He gave some really great answers just about storytelling and character and how he brought Violet Valance to where he comes to in the end of the story, and I asked him a lot about Tonga too because I connected with her, and yeah, really again great interview. Mentioned a lot about Django, so I have a bit of a facepalm moment. Well, oh no, that guy right there. So I had this thing right behind me. This is Dom's thing. He has a signed by somebody. I forget who. It might be Tim Morrison. Can't tell. I forget. Anyway, and I had there. I never referred to it the entire interview. Anyway, he did mention talking about his upcoming Jango Fett comic. That's going to be exciting. For now, 4-issue run. Here's hoping it gets a lot more. It's a prequel comic. And it's Chris's favorite character from the prequels. So, match made in heaven for the tractor beam. And yeah, he gives a bit of, I think it might be a bit of a scoop about how it's going to be set before the Phantom Menace. It's going to be set a young Django trying to make a reputation for himself. Probably, I'm speculating here, just having the time when he gets picked by Palpatine and Dooku to become the clone template. That's not going to come up in this comic, I'm sure, but that's kind of in view to him building the reputation that gets him noticed to become that. And so I that's my sense, but at this point in the run, yeah, it's going to be a young Django trying to make his mark in a wider galaxy, just a humble man trying to make his way in the universe. And yes, that's going to be exciting. So yeah, it was great conversation. Check that out right here on the Underworld YouTube channel, as well as I did end up putting it up on the Ion Canon Spotify and Apple podcast feeds. So if you prefer audio, I haven't done the Tractor Beam episodes on audio much, but I do every Ion Canon episode on audio. But yeah, check out that one. I made an exception. I'm gonna start doing that for Tractor Beam soon. Just gotta have a few things in place before I get to that, but yeah, that will be happening soon. So yeah, Tractor Beam this coming Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, here and everywhere, here, there, and everywhere. So yeah, see you then. But yeah, for now, we got a whole Ion Canon podcast to do. That's the plugs. There's the plugs out of the way. Got a week in Star Wars. It's been a week in Star Wars. We got a bunch of news to get through, but first, you got some thoughts.
Yeah, I've got thoughts because I always got thoughts. Don't I never not got thoughts?
You always got thoughts, Joe.
I always got thoughts. That's very poetic.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. So I've been thinking a lot about kind of artistic intent and projection, headcanons, and when headcanons and projection become canon. So okay, so let me try to visualize this. I don't know why I'm having a little bit of a brain fart right now. I'm the one now getting sleepy.
Happens to the best of us. Happens to the best of us.
I know. Okay, so I mean, I think I'll use the greatest example. I think let's use the prequel Jedi sort of the great example here.
Yeah.
All right, so my argument that George Lucas never intended for the prequel Jedi to be flawed, and that
Mhm.
all of that is just people's projection of the Jedi Order, especially a lot of old, younger, not younger, but
Yeah.
like one generation below the prequel generation, but one generation below George's, above no Gen Xers.
Yeah. Those guys.
Very much. Don't want to put all Gen Xers, but Gen Xers and older millennials,
Yeah.
projecting a lot of their own views about religious institutions and all that stuff, and why they don't like the prequel era Jedi, why they feel like they're so stale.
Mhm.
Onto that, and like, oh, it's because George made them flawed, and that's why. But obviously, that's not the point. However, because eventually other people are going to start writing Star Wars, that projection of the Jedi starts to become that seep into the storytelling of these other people.
Mhm.
We have the whole that's kind of how Dave views the Jedi as like they're the flawed fallen Jedi. The whole we've now sort of retextualized the prequel as the fall of the Jedi era. Um, so what we're seeing is people's projections start to become and headcanons in some way now become canon because
Yeah.
these people are now writing the Star Wars. And so it kind of begs the question of, well, okay, that's fine. I don't think it's not fine to a certain extent.
Mm.
But at what point it's like, does original intent even start to matter as we get further and further away from, especially if people are adding this projection on to now they're taking their own personal text and making it text.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of my thought. It's a bit rambly. I wish I kind of had more thought in my head. I should have written this down.
That's
Um,
okay.
but yeah, that's sort of my thought in sort of a meta
Mhm.
canonical sense today.
I mean, we've
Yes.
talked about this a few times,
Mhm.
and and I've had to go back and forth. I mean, my whole or old podcast, for Christ's sake, Anakin, right? It was reflecting on this theme and saying, actually, yeah, a lot of projection, a lot of, the medium is the message, the content is the audience. We always bring into what we bring into something. We get out of a story, a text, what we put into it. Um, and there's always room for interpretation in these things. It's true, George. He made these films, and the intentional point of view. The story we're given is that the Jedi are flawed but well-meaning, and those intentions do end up leading to difficult choices but right choices, at least the best they can in
Mhm.
the moment with what they know. And that the point is, what they know keeps on shrinking and shrinking and shrinking by the real villain of the whole saga, and aka Darth Sidious, aka Palpatine. So yeah, it helps to keep that in mind for sure. I
Mhm.
think George explored stories that lean into that. I mean, the whole trilogy. I mean, Obi-Wan, I think, as a character, he's gotten some bad rap, but I think as a character, he was it exemplifies a
Exemplifies.
character that does his best in an impossible situation. The whole Clone Wars show, I think, really brings that out and shows how, yeah, these characters are the heroes, except for this pivotal moment at the end of season 5 that has a saga defining moment where, uh, well, actually, this is begs the question, right?
Mhm.
Does the Jedi Council kind of take their aim at Ahsoka because they're so fallen to the dark side in their own self-interest, saying we got to get with Palpatine, or has Palpatine manipulated and cornered them into such a position where they wish they could do the right thing, but they just don't or can't or won't or whatever?
Mhm.
This kind of pat answer that ultimately, I mean, Anakin sees that, and that's the point, is what Palpatine's going for here. He sees that, Anakin sees that, and then says, "Oh yeah, I'm on my own, and the Jedi have forced me to be abandoned, and so they must be evil. The Jedi have forced me to not have the power to heal Padme, this keep her from dying. So yeah, it's definitely I mean, yeah, the fan projection based on what you believe about real world religions, right? And I always have to keep in mind, I always have to remember, Joel, you're the one who's reminding me not to overcompensate, not to be all just to look good and say, oh yeah, the Jedi are flawed because I'm pushing against my own wanting, you know, mainline Christianity in North America to look good, you know. Or you know, put or saying, oh, it's a bad look to want it to look good, and there's a whole, even with Super Bowl commercials, there's a whole internal discourse going on there. Yeah, it is interesting. I will say to your main point though is, uh, that's exciting. The exciting thing about having different storytellers is that they can tell different angles and different aspects and put up different possibilities. This character did this thing, this character did that thing, you know. This part of Obi-Wan's choice, you know, but this part of Obi-Wan's choice might have been iffy, but he actually ultimately at the end of the day, you know, like as Red Leaders here saying, at the end of the day, yeah, I mean what he ends up, the way he ends up, I mean, giving up everything to go and, you know, I mean, we know up until the Kenobi show, he's the Kenobi show, he's grumpy, depressed, just like Luke will be, by the way. But yeah, he gives up everything to actually safeguard the future and do his best to support the future. And so, yeah, it's true. I do think, again, I'd be intrigued to show. Well, and we'll get to this in a minute, in a little bit, for a second. What would a Mace Windu show be like? What would a Mace Windu story be like in this era? We're getting a Mace Windu comic. We got it last week, but that's set earlier. I mean, what's Mace Windu kind of in? Yeah, in the era. What are his choices? Yeah. So does that bring up another thing, right? I mean, it's what do we believe about celibacy?
That's true.
You know what? You know, that's another part of this. Do we believe it's repression, or do we believe it's availability for service and hospitality? Right.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you read George's stuff, this is actually one of the interesting things. We won't get into it because we are day, but there's like there is that weird kind of push and pull with the no attachment thing, because George talks about, like, he's very pro the no attachment, no marriage rule. Although weirdly enough, it's sort of like, well, when you think about the actual movies, attachment is kind of what saves the day. You know, Luke Vader's attachment to Luke, and even Kylo's kind of attachment to Leia and Rey, his dad, and the only one that kind of that goes sideways is Anakin, because obviously we all know what happened there. But yeah. I mean, but if you actually like read George's own, views on what the Jedi attachment rule is like, yeah, they were in the right, 100%. No marriage, no.
I mean, for that context, and that's another thing, is for the context.
I think just in general, like, I think even just in terms of like what Luke's Jedi Order would have been if George had written it, like, nope, taking the Jedi when they're babies, George okay with that.
I mean,
Luke got to find the Jedi babies and change the diapers.
Reading on ahead, we're going to talk about a specific form of the form of attachment this episode, our main topic, and there are some former Jedi in here.
That's true. Former Jedi, current Jedi, and
and the Order is no more, and so so it's a good question. It's a good point. Again, I just think there are multiple things that you can say, and there are that's the thing. That's the ambiguity that I live with in the real world. There are multiple things to be said about the colonial history of the Church of England and its presence in North America. There are things to be said today about how the Episcopal Church of the United States, and I'm saying my home team, the church I go to, and Sundays, and the Anglican Church of Canada, and LGBTQ inclusion, and where we are on that, and where we are on engaging in our communities and things like that. And And not to say we're necessarily, and not to have a triumphalist attitude about that either. But yeah, it's doing the best we can with what we have. I'll say, as someone in that, I say mainline Christianity, meaning the more kind of historic churches, I do gravitate towards Obi-Wan. Right? I do gravitate towards doing the best we can with what we have, based on a real belief in the Force willing setting things in motion and whatnot. So that's the whole thing. This is a good theology time. We're getting to that next week for sure.
Ooh, very
but
fun.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll just say, to go again. Hey, Rid, I'm glad you're here. Like, yeah, we're talking about Jedi or flawed arguments. Sometimes crosses over sort of trashing monks writ large. It's always been awkward. If Star Wars carries bits of Buddhism, then people need to remember they have vows of self. And that's true. That's sort of the weird thing about it. I think that's kind of both in the writing and in the fan debate. I don't want to make this too much about a Jedi thing. Although this probably will also something to go to our discussion is yeah, I do think I think both from a rejection side of things, we kind of view the Jedi with a little too much of a Western view of the world. So it's like, instead of Buddhist monks, they are Catholic priests, and then sometimes the writing kind of comes off with certain authors. I'm not gonna say who, but I feel like do think certain authors can view it like kind of Catholic Church. Yoda is the Pope. Got the Pope mobile, got the Yoda mobile, the big hat. And that can kind of seep in a little bit. My final point is this, I'll say, and then we can move on. I like it when Star Wars kind of takes these fan discussions and puts them in the actual text. Like, have characters represent certain points of view, and then obviously whoever you side with, that's kind of who wins the argument.
Yeah.
Like Last Jedi, that's the thing about that thing I love about Luke in The Last Jedi is Ryan was like, he saw the prequels suck and the Jedi suck debate that came out of that, and he's like, I'm gonna give that to Luke. That's Luke's point of view. The Jedi suck because I watched the prequel, shut her down, and then Rey's like, no, actually, Jedi are actually pretty fine. I'm taking these Jedi texts because they have value and they're gonna help me win the day.
She watched the original trilogy.
She watched the original trilogy, and I think she even came out of the prequels of like, hey, they tried their best. Palpatine got them in the end, sadly, but came back strong.
But yeah, I mean, I'll say I love those scenes so much. It's oddly enough that on those films, the Octo lessons are my favorite.
Oh yeah,
what's with me and folks sitting around talking. It's a thing.
It's good stuff.
It's what we do on the internet here. There we go. All right. I don't have a week in Star Wars because my week in Star Wars is all the news that I'm just stoked about. So we'll get to that in a little bit. We have a bit of time here. Bad Batch coming around the corner. Let's join the podcast area for a second here. Bad Batch coming out 21st, February 21st. So that's next week, right?
Yes.
Am I going nuts here? That's a week from now.
9 days. 9 days from now.
That's exciting. Speaking of, I mean, who knows if there's gonna be anything about Quinlan and did we talk about? Are we gonna talk about Quinlan and
we talked about? No, we already talked about Ventress last week. Remember?
Quinlan Ventress. Okay.
We did
that. We're going to talk about Quinlan Ventress this week. I've done my homework.
We did that the week before. No, we didn't do last week that Red was on. That was the week before Corey, I believe.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, Bad Batch season 3 of 3 coming around the corner. Joel, the non-spoiler reviews are coming around, starting to come around the bend, I should say. And Joel, so you found a good one you want to look at. So let's give that a look.
Yeah, apparently this was just one that Star Wars Holocron posted, and a bunch of other people we know have seen the 8 episodes. Sorry. Okay. He says the post says the Bad Batch season 3 episodes 1 through 8 are phenomenal. Mature tone with a focus on overarching plot over one-off stories. The season ties the entire saga together, from the PT, The Mandalorian, to Rise of Skywalker. Omega and Crosshair are the show's heart. Palpatine has never been scarier. Mandalorian and The Rise of Skywalker.
What do
I
you
mean, we know.
say?
I know. And I feel like it's interesting that particular reviewer. I don't think it's holocron. I think he's just typing something he saw and using those words
Hmm.
exactly. Like it's not saying it ties it all together. The prequels, the originals, the sequels. He's using specifically the Mandalorian and the Rise of Skywalker specifically. And we all know that Mister Hemlock, Doctor Hemlock. I love Dr. Hemlock. He's so cool.
Yeah.
Is in charge of the Mount Tantus cloning facilities, and old Palpy's there to make sure Hemlock's doing whatever is needed to be done. I'm not saying we're gonna get an overt thing, but me thinks this is the start of a very long process.
Yes.
But also just in general, very excited for Bad Batch season 3. I've loved the show so far.
Hmm.
It's been great. Exceeded expectations. Jennifer Corbin, brilliant showrunner. All props to her. We really need to really thank her for her brilliance of shepherding the show. Um, and very excited to just kind of get back on the Star Wars TV wagon for a little bit after the hiatus. So
Yeah.
bring it on.
I'll point out two things in this tweet. The thing that is the surprise that this clear sense that they are gonna go into this dark arts cloning, whatever weird gobbledygook direction that we kind of suspected, but it is nice to know that they're not doing the annoying thing of completely refusing to acknowledge anything at all. That there is going to be things that those of us who know what to look for are going to say, yeah, this is probably where this is headed. Where and we absolutely like it, and it I'm glad they're not going to be like, and this is how Snoke happens, and this is what Grogu,
Behold,
thankfully they're not going to do that.
Operation Snoke.
But they could have, they could have done swung in the opposite direction and just done nothing at all. And so it's nice to see that. The thing we expected and predicted, Omega and Crosshair being the heart. I mean, that's the thing I'm looking forward to the most. Always thinking about character first, and at least I'm trying to learn to. Lore is important. Lore is great, but character first. And that from what I've heard, this really does bring things home. Yeah, that mature tone with Omega, right? With this kid. This is really gonna bring home her story and bring home Crosshair's story, and so definitely looking forward to it. And one last thing, both of those things, the character point, Omega and Crosshair, and connecting to the Mandalorian and the sequel trilogy, etc. And let me just bring this up again. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, prequels to Mandalorian to Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, it really. So maybe this is wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. I get the feeling that in this era of live action, this show has not had the attention that say Rebels and Clone Wars did.
No, you're right.
And so and that's not a knock. It is a little too bad because it deserves the attention, but because it's a 20-minute animated show, it doesn't. And so and so this will probably raise the profile of this show, probably return it. I won't say it'll have the spotlight the way Clone Wars and Rebels did, but it'll get more of the attention, more of the love than it has the first two seasons because it's had to compete. So here's hoping.
Let's see. Let's see. Well, season 1. I think season 1 had a pretty empty spot. Season 2 is when they did side by side with the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Season no.
But season 1 still came out after Mandalorian season 1, right?
No, it came out after season. Okay.
It came out while Mandalorian had already come out. Is what I mean, right? Because Mandalorian came out November 2019, right?
I want to say though that. Sorry for arguing about this.
No, I'm just it's a fact.
Bad Batch. I want to say Bad Batch though came out like in the year of COVID when everything got weirdly pushed back. So
yeah,
I feel like it almost had a year to itself. Like the first season did.
Sure. What I just mean is Mandalorian season 1 came out November 2019. Then
Yes.
Bad Batch season 1 came out later. And
No,
so
it
when,
came
when
out.
did
It came out in 2020, late 2021.
yeah, but after that's still after
Season 2,
Mandalorian
at
season.
least.
But that's still after Mandalorian season 1. Like we had already gotten the bar of a live action Star Wars show streaming.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, right?
It came out 2021. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
it still fair point that it didn't come out while something else was happening. I know season 2 did get a lot of overlap, but this one coming out. I mean, right now, it's another thing is there isn't anything coming out yet in terms of live action Star Wars. We'll get to that possibly, probably not, because we got to move on. But
Yeah.
maybe we'll get to that very quickly in a few minutes. But it's true. It has all the eyes on that screen, on the animated screen. So, anyways, do you have anything more to say about Bad Batch season 3?
I'm just excited for the hiatus of Star Wars screen stuff to end. I've been itching for some Star Wars weekly again.
That's true. Again, we're grateful, especially just remember the writers and the actors needed a fair shake, and they got a fair shake, hopefully. At least one they can live with for now. So thankfully all that is now cleared. The log jam is cleared, and we're getting some Star Wars on screen. Eyes on screen. Speaking of Star Wars that happen to be on screen, well, let me make sure I'm going here. Speaking of Star Wars that happened to be on screen 25 years ago, and starting 25 years ago, and I'm wearing this T-shirt, and I'm being I'm gonna take an attitude here, guys. I'm doing this. Newsflash, guys, the war is over. The prequelists won. And I'm being this way only because of all the crap that Jar Jar got and that Jake Lloyd got, and and I mean on my best got for characters that are actually good, and performances that are actually decent, and for films that people actually loved before the internet. And we know the story, we know the history. The fight's over. I can frame this T-shirt now. I don't even have to wear it. It just means something else, because, and the reason I'm being this way is of course the hype, the thing of the hello there with the Empire magazine. I'm sure you have all heard it. They're getting a 25th anniversary look back issue coming out this Thursday, and it's UK magazine, Empire magazine. So hopefully I'll be able to get my hands on it.
Show the toys. Show the toys.
Yes. So it'll feature interviews from Hayden Christensen, Ian McDiarmid, Natalie Portman, Ewan McGregor, Liam Neeson. We'll see what Liam Neeson remembers, Sam Jackson, who never forgets, and more. I'll bring this guy. What am I doing here? Bring this guy up. This beautiful kitchen sink cover by Bill McConkey. Now that's only for subscribers, so hopefully I'll be able to get it.
I had the Sidious toy and the new Gunray toy.
Nice.
I know that for sure. And the Boba Fett that had no head.
I have about 5 or 6 Coruscant cards, as you all know. There we go. Yeah. So
go.
Yeah. Super cool. So this beautiful cover, of all these toys, but also has a very comic book style. Hopefully I'll be able to get it. I didn't get time to bring up the other 2 covers, but I'm sure you've all seen the tweets and whatnot. Joel, I'll ask you this: which interview are you most excited for?
I don't know. I just like looking at the pictures. I guess Ian McDiarmid. I always love hearing from him. I'm gonna say Ian McDiarmid because that's always fun.
Yeah.
He's always a ball to
that's
listen
on
to
brand
for sure.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. I mean, I hopefully I can get this cover. It has a Coruscant card on it, so it means I have to have it.
Mm-hmm.
Natalie Portman. She hasn't been doing much with Star Wars in a long time. Finally a new Natalie Portman interview. I'm really excited for that. Liam Neeson, like I said, we'll see what he remembers. Whenever anyone asks him about Star Wars, asks him about Phantom Menace, he's like, oh yeah, I was in that. That's right. To be fair, he's been in so many other things, but it's it's
You
kind
at
of
least
interesting. It's kind of I mean, he's been around, he's paid his dues, etc. There we go. So yeah. In the chat, I get to see folks in the chat. Red Leader, Wikipedia is in the house. You do the forces work. Welcome to the Iron Canon podcast. Ask us, what interviews are you guys excited for in this issue? Again, I mean, Sam Jackson on brand saying he wants a Mace Windu Disney Plus series. And it's a shtick now at this point. He wants to come back. He wants to do something. He's still alive, or except before. It's a shtick, but I'm here for it. I'll take it. Whatever. So yeah. So those are the interviews. The images, those beautiful images. Again, go to. Ben was able to share them on the Underworld.
The Hayden one was my
socials.
favorite, I think, and the Ian one.
Yeah, which Hayden one?
The one with the shadow.
Yeah. Oh my word. That's one of the best Star Wars photos I've ever seen. And I think Ben made the thing with Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy, who, spoiler alert, by the way, is the main social media guy with the Star Wars Underworld. Put the Phantom Menace poster and that image side by side, and yeah, the two greatest Star Wars images that we've seen. So yeah, so that's about that. I don't know, anything else you're excited for with this Empire magazine?
No, I mean, it's really cool. It's really cool. And of course, the other big thing that came with it.
Yes, so we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, okay, so yeah, there's
and the toys. I love the toy cover because, I had some of those growing up.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. That is pretty sweet. Okay, speaking of which, again, the war is over, guys. Not only is Jar Jar getting the love he deserves, not only is Jake Lloyd getting the love he deserves, he's getting the love in theaters.
Yay!
So happy. Let's bring this. I'm gonna bring this poster up. I'm gushing. I'm not holding back here. Like, I'm actually getting a little weepy right now. I'm not kidding. I have not seen this film in the theater since 1999, and I remember I loved it. I saw it 5 times in the theater. I was 14 years old. I had a crush on Natalie Portman from day one. And yeah, it's coming back on May 3rd for the May 4th weekend. It's a beautiful poster by Matt Ferguson, showing just very, very beautiful, very 2024-esque poster that fits. And it's clearly stylized and whatnot, but I'm so excited. I hope it goes for a while. I hope it's for a few weeks. I hope I can watch this like 5 times in the theaters. But
I hope I can watch it once. I never got to see any Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones in theaters.
True, because you were what, 2 years old? Yeah.
That's no. Let's see, 99. I was 4.
You're 4. Okay, fair. I forgot how old you were. Yeah, and I just I don't know what else to say about this except to just be happy that that the turning of the tide, that the groundswell of affection and love for this trilogy, for this story, for this masterpiece that George Lucas did. I mean, our friend Din is fond of saying, yeah, George, in 1977 to 1983, he made a masterpiece. He did something no one else had done before, no one else had seen. And then in 1999 to 2005, he did it again, and made such beautiful films, a beautiful story. And this poster by Matt Ferguson just captures the aesthetic so well. It's my favorite aesthetic. It's my favorite trilogy, of course. My favorite story, and Revenge of the Sith is, of course, my favorite film of all time. And so Phantom Menace, yeah, I mean, we know Tanda's favorite film. I definitely spammed her with in the chats.
I go back and forth if Phantom Menace is actually my favorite prequel or not, because I got a lot of love for Revenge of the Sith, but sometimes, man, Phantom Menace just always is that really my secret favorite? Like, I never know. It's like, I always have to think hard about it. Yeah. I always agree with people, though, who say it's the prettiest. I think it is kind of the nicest looking.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully, and here's a good point, hopefully it's in Europe. European theaters do the right thing. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be AMC in the States. Cineplex, Cineplex in Canada, do the right thing. Again, I'm going to shout out Din one more time. Give it to us in 3D. I didn't get to see it in 3D. I just never got on the ball when it was in 3D. And so the 3D release. So yeah, it does have. I guess because it did come back most times and whatnot. But I haven't seen it since 1999 in the theaters. So
I'm okay
uh,
with not seeing in 3D. I don't like 3D that much,
fair
but
enough.
I would love to see it in theaters regardless.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I is it the tightest written? Yeah, I mean it's pretty good, pretty tight written. It's to me, it's the one that feels the most really like the original trilogy. It's got that
interesting.
fun adventure
Yeah,
spark to it. I could go on, but we are pressed for
yes.
some
So
time.
anyway, and this wasn't that big of a newsy thing. This is just me gushing over how much. Yeah. I mean, I keep saying it. I
I
keep
think it's a
going
big
back to
news
it.
thing. It's nice to see an old film
Yeah.
in with a wide release.
But to say, yeah, again, that the groundswell, the popularity, the fact that this is going to sell out in theaters, those people are going to flock to this.
I hope so.
Yeah, I know so. I mean, it's at least for a bit, they're going to be the haters. There's already the haters, but they're just so irrelevant. But Lucasfilm says, no, we're doing this now. And
Well, is it a wide release or is it a limited release?
I don't know. I mean, I hope it's at least got to be at least a few theaters in Toronto, a few theaters in every city.
I will try to find it nearby my
Yeah,
city.
I
'Cause
mean,
I'm not driving outside my city, but I
yeah,
will
fair.
try and find it.
I mean, here's the thing. I drive to if it's not playing in Canada, I'll drive to Buffalo. I'm not kidding. I will absolutely do that. So yeah, May 3rd again. Hopefully, obviously for the May 4th weekend ish or vicinity, but I mean, it would make sense. It would be great if it ran until what was it, May 25th, May 19th, or whatever the actual 25th anniversary of the film. So, yeah, just excited. I don't know. There's nothing intellectually deep to say about this except I was actually welling up. Yeah, it's so beautiful. Anyways, very quickly, get this out of the way. Although, I'll just give one more look. All right.
Very nice.
Very quickly, there is new Star Wars coming out. New Star Wars that we're going to really talk about quickly. Talk about a lot. Collider.com saying that our next favorite show will hit Disney Plus this summer. Release window. That's Joel. That's kind of what you expected this summer. So yeah, it's good that Bad Batch will get its time in the sun, and then the Acolyte will hit. The article, oddly, speaking of Phantom Menace, it was 50 years before the Phantom Menace. I'm guessing that's a mistake. I don't think that's right. I think that's like saying the Darth Maul comic releasing on a Thursday. I don't think that's right either. But interesting implications if it's actually set 50 years as opposed to 100 years. I don't know if you want to talk a bit more about that.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it will be ambiguous. My here the cynical conspiracy theorist in me is like, they're gonna be vague about it in case they're like, we gotta break the Darth Plagueis glass. Break in case we need Plagueis. But I always felt that they were gonna send it at least 100 years to give it some space and kind of like let the own little mini era of High Republic on TV breeze before old Hugo starts showing up and doing his evil moon banking Sith Lord stuff.
Hugo.
Old Hugo, my buddy Hugo.
Hey, Hugo or Hago?
No, I think it's Hugo. Well, that's how the novel. That's how the audiobook pronounced Hugo Damask. So
really, even though it's spelled Hego.
That's how the novel pronounces it. Hugo Damask. That's how I always pronounced it. But
sounds more correct.
Old Plagueis walks around. But no, I mean, I don't know. I thought like I have heard so many different years of when the High Republic ends. Like there's a Chinese book that like says it ends like 84 BBY, and I'm like, okay. I'd be curious if the show actually does what Andor does and like put the date on any of it or not. But yeah, I mean maybe they just got it wrong. I don't know. There's white robes, and I've seen some of the spoiler trailer stuff. But yeah, exciting. It's Phantom Menace the show, maybe.
That'd be interesting. I mean, it's definitely set earlier than that.
But I agree with Omar though that start the marketing during the Phantom Menace stuff and put a trailer for it in the Phantom Menace thing.
Yeah, Omar, that was a great point. That'll be nice. Nice, because as Red's saying, we haven't seen anything. No dice. So
yeah.
Okay, we got to move on, but Yeah, that as always, that's the one thing we're gonna when this show actually does air, we're gonna have rather extended eyes on screen for this, probably approaching main topic each week. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah, and see how that syncs up with the flagship show and whatnot. So
Yeah.
definitely keep it locked on the Canon podcast for all our thoughts on the Acolyte, because it's set in the High Republic. It's considered a High Republic esque. Our girl Vern is going to be our woman, our Lady Vern. She's going to show up. So get a cameo for 5 minutes, but she'll be in it. Who knows? So there we
Cameo
go.
for 5 minutes and dies.
Still,
That's
that's
great.
great.
Yeah.
I mean, not
Okay.
great that she dies, but great that she's in it. You know what I
I'm
mean?
not
Anyway.
spoiling anything. I'm just making a joke, people.
Yeah, we know. Anyways, Vern doesn't have any love interest. She doesn't go there. Some of her friends do. Let's get it to Valentine's Day. Let's do this. Let's talk about love, Joel.
Love, something we don't know about.
I
Little
know.
self-deprecating humor. Yeah, romance in Star Wars. You know, it's kind of always been part of the saga since, more since Empire. I mean, there's a little bit in New Hope with Luke going to Leia and Leia. Who is she? Beautiful. Obi-Wan, it's your sister. You snap.
He didn't know that.
I know. I'm just joking. Yeah, it's been part of the saga since really since day one. Always the middle one has probably the most heavy on the romance or any romantic implications. Empire, tech clones, a little bit less Jedi in the tension there to a certain extent. Yeah. I don't really know where to begin with this one.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess the way I'll just jump in quickly then.
Yeah.
The way we've thought to organize this is in actually there's some big ships coming up. There's the Venator. No, sorry, I had to make that joke once, right?
The big three ship show: the Star Destroyer, the Venator, and I like the Lucrehulk, so I'm going to meet the Lucrehulk.
Lucrehulk's not bad. Yeah,
I love Lucrehulk.
Old Man Snoke's boudoir.
No, that's the Supremacy. I'm talking about the Trade Federation ship in episode 1.
Those guys, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, we got Anakin, Padme, Han and Leia, and the thumbnail. Oh my gosh, Joel, what are you doing with that thumbnail? Getting the Raylos going. Speaking of fan,
I'm poking the bear because this is what YouTube's all about, people. Yeah. That's what you got to do.
So
you play the game. Yeah. Well, I guess we start with the origin, the OG of romances. Then, Matthew, let's get Han and Leia. And weirdly, they're kind of. I mean, maybe some people disagree with me, but in my opinion, in terms of kind of the big three, they're really the healthiest. Despite the age gap, which is kind of more of an issue. Well, I don't know. Was the age gap always there with original trilogy? I don't know, but despite kind of the questionable age gap because of the prequels, honestly, kind of the healthiest relationship. Honestly, I think of the big three, because especially in later material, they love each other and they respect one another. Han is not like a controlling man. It's like, my wife will sit here and do this, and Leia is very much, you do not mess with Leia. Especially a lot of the newer material, they're very, respectful of one another. Like Leia, Han, yes, they're stubborn, but Han will eventually support Leia and her diplomatic goals. He seems like the kind of guy who, he hates to wear a suit and fancy robes or something, but he'll do it because it's important for Leia in the mission. Leia's, kind of Han is the scoundrel. Originally it's very much the classic Lady and the Tramp. Ooh, he's on the wrong side of the tracks. He's a bad boy, kind of, but he's got a heart of gold because he helps the rebellion. And then post Endor, he goes legit, and they try to raise a family, but they kind of got too much of that free spirit to them. I think what's interesting about Han and Leia's marriage at least how it's portrayed in canon so far, is that it's kind of like they both need to be free, but they'll always. It's kind of like if you love something, set it free. But if
Mhm.
they love you, they'll return to you, and that's how I kind of view their relationship. It's like, yeah, they're not gonna like just stay home every day. It's like, hi, honey, back from work, making the bacon.
Yep.
Han will have his wacky adventure, and Leia will have her diplomatic military adventure. They know this. It
Mhm.
doesn't really help their kid growing up, probably. Some implications there,
Yep.
um, both in Legends and canon. Uh, Leave it with the droid nanny or Winter.
Yep.
Legends. But in terms of just the two of them themselves, they always come back to each other. Even in Force Awakens, everyone always acts as if, and this is kind of a problem with the lack of exposition. Kind of acts as if like there was some big divorce, and it's like, no, I just think Han just felt sad and shamed because his son turned to the dark side, and like it's almost like a kid dying. It's like they couldn't be around each other for a while,
Mhm.
but at the end, Han still came back to Leia, and they kissed and hugged. Then Han died.
Yeah.
But it's that's a kind of a in terms of the on-screen relationships, and I'm just gonna keep in terms of the saga right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, it kind of is the healthiest and kind of the most, but just truly romantic in terms of also what other authors and writers have done with it over the years, especially with a more modern context. So yeah, that's kind of I'll just start in there with Han and Leia.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a romance forged in the crucible of war,
Hmm.
and that's part of it. They meet each other, and then you he sort of saves her, but no, she's the one who saves him
Hmm.
into the garbage chute, Flyboy. Uh, there's something that appeals to Han, oddly enough, about a woman who can take charge. And I wonder if he's just so tired of taking charge. He's also, even going back to Kira, he's the scoundrel with the heart, and when a woman brings the heart out in him by being, I mean, when she takes on the stronger, more hardened role,
Hmm.
his softness comes out, and it happened in a little bit with Kira, but she left, and well, we know what happened. She ends up with Beckett and Maul, and um, not being able to really connect back with Han at all. With
Hmm.
Leia, yeah, I mean she obviously has her soft side too,
Hmm.
but I think the difference with the other two big film pairs here that we're going to talk about, she's the one with the more importance to the organization, probably frankly the more importance to the story. That's not true for Ray, but um, well, certainly the more political power, more military power.
Hmm.
She's the alpha, if I can use that term, in this context, and so he has to find a way to support her. And I mean that's
Hmm.
is it the Ray Carson novel, Princess and the
No,
Scoundrel,
it's
or the
Beth
Beth
Revis.
Revis, sorry, the Beth Revis novel, Princess and the Scoundrel. That really comes out that I mean, their honeymoon, she has to, the honeymoon on the Halcyon, she
Mhm.
has to turn it into a diplomatic mission, and he has to understand that. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing. There was this weird expiry date, like adapt or not, adapt or die. And yeah, because with Han, there's only so much he could be a stay-at-home dad, right? There's only
Mhm.
so much, it's his this domestic life he'd be able to handle that.
Mhm.
I think it is sad because it means he never adapted, means they never really figured it out. And yeah, like I never think there was any kind of big blow up, but there was clearly a drift apart.
Well, it doesn't help that your son turned to the dark side,
Sure,
and
well, no, you're right. I mean that's definitely what happens,
Mhm.
and and but I think there were the seeds of that beforehand. I mean, you even read the Aftermath trilogy, you read Last Shot. There's already these kind of questions, even in Princess and the Scoundrel,
Mhm.
even in Return of the Jedi. There's a question:
Mhm.
how are they going to make this work? Um, where is the where's I mean, this is the funny thing with all these relationships is where's the rational build up to actually stepping back and dialing down the emotions a little bit and saying, okay, let's actually figure this out. Of course, I think something Leia could have done, but maybe she tried to do, because I do think actually women are better at that, frankly. Tried to do, but maybe he just couldn't. Maybe he just didn't accept it. So it's interesting. We're talking about the breakup of it, but I mean, what appeals to us about this, is, I think in Empire, his gumption, his kishkas in the in that boiler room, whatever, where he just goes for the
The
kiss.
carbonite freedings.
Well, no, I mean before, when he goes for the kiss and not Chewie, 3PO cock blocks him.
Oh, it's in the Hans. It's in the Millennium Falcon.
And the Falcon. Yeah. But that she wants it, and there's a real desire there for each other, and he can see that and sense that. Is there an appeal for a man who can actually be sensitive to that and be aware of that, and then actually take action for it? I mean, these are kinds of things I'm thinking about for real life too. But in the 80s, 1980, here's the question, and I'll throw this to chat as well. Has this aged well or not? I mean, I think it's well, and Joel, I think you probably think it has.
Well,
actually, I can see the argument.
Empire.
Well, I'll say both. I'll look at this both ways. I mean,
okay.
Again, is he, to the extent that he's actually reading what Leia wants him to do in this? Yeah, I mean, and I think there is a conversation. Now that hopefully, I mean, this is definitely getting to real world concerns here. Hopefully now, as we get more used to this post Me Too reality of conversations about power and desire and consent, and hopefully there are increasing norms and just a sense of course, consent is this baseline bottom line, that we can actually see, okay, he actually saw what Leia wanted and took action, right? There's some physical things, or like you're saying, stay in the cockpit, kind of, being held again. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to.
Well,
I don't want to cancel myself.
I'll just say this, and I'll say this about all the romances in Star Wars, especially the Saga. This is what happens when you write space operatic romances, and it's all written by dudes. White dudes. White dudes. So, there's always some problematic stuff to it, just inherently. And that's why I said on the top that, in my opinion, Han and Leia are the least toxic, because I think there's a little bit of Han getting a little handsy in Empire for sure, and I think if you label that criticism on it, I'm not gonna be all defensive about it. Like, no, if you say that, but I do think that, and this comes from more modern media written by women, like Beth Revis and others, and just kind of even just people, doesn't have to be just women, but just people just with more with an awareness of this angle to it, that I think the foundations for Han and Leia's relationship are still stronger. And Han gets a little handsy, and the age gap thing is more of a weird kind of byproduct of the prequel timeline thing. At the end of the day, foundationally, Han and Leia, you can kind of just forget the age thing for a second, because they do love each other, and even after they break up, it's not like Han started just going, they dating other people, and Leia's like, no, I think Han remained loyal to Leia to the bitter end. And once he kind of came out of his need to run away, it's like, it's funny. Harrison Ford plays two characters who kind of has this with Marion, especially with there is an age implication, because apparently Han was Indy was 25 and she was 15, and
that's problematic.
More problematic. But like Leia and Han, there is kind of, well, obviously once you, especially in the later stuff, there is a reason why Indy and Marion are still kind of the OTP for each other, even in Indy 6, and
Mhm.
why I still love them as a couple, even though, yeah, the problematic elements, again, this is what
Yeah.
happens when you have a bunch of guys, right, in some romance.
I mean, although we know Marsha had a lot to put in, a lot of input later on. And even, I mean, and we'll get to Carrie Fisher having input in the prequels too. But
Right, but,
I mean, well, sorry, I'll let you finish your thought.
okay. Yeah, but, Han and Leia, I think there's a lot more to build around them where even if their relationship falls apart, I still do think there is still sometimes you just kind of have to write it in a more modern sense and kind of ignore
Sure.
how Empire handles it to a certain extent.
Mhm.
But I do think that sometimes they do respect each other. They do generally love each other. Um and they were there to each other for the end.
Yeah. I mean, I will say a few things. I mean, at some point, the age thing doesn't really matter as much, especially because, I mean, Leia, what she's say 23 in Empire, but even when she's younger, I mean, she knows herself and she doesn't take any crap from anybody, and is one of the great, I mean, we have the stereotype of strong female lead. She was that before, and she was before that was a thing, and she made it a thing, by being such a brilliant example of it. So, I mean, there's that. I mean, she just more confident, I think, more honestly, more genuinely confident, right, than
Hmm.
Han, which is weird because Han projects confidence. He pushes it out, but really that's a front for all his, who am I? What am I doing? How am I? Well, I really want to actually uh fight for what's right in the galaxy, but I have this reputation to uphold. Okay, I'm going to give up this reputation in part because Leia is there, but that Leia genuinely inspires him, even in New Hope, to come back and help Luke destroy the Death Star, but ultimately stick his neck out for the rebellion. I think, I mean, another thing to say then is character development, character growth. He becomes grows into the person who could be a good fit and good support for Leia.
Hmm.
Sorry, I've spoken a lot tonight. A good support for Leia. In part, I mean, going through the scary, vulnerable thing of being frozen in carbonite, becoming helpless, and genuinely no bones about her being rescued by Leia. He is the princess in the tower, right? And so that really does teach him, to the point where, if he didn't know about Luke, he was being like, yeah, okay, I'll go. That took a lot of integrity on his part, and then of course Leia has to say no, it's not a problem. We're good.
I mean,
We know.
Han, in terms of character growth, that's why I always say Force Awakens is the best. Well, actually, but I think actually I'm going to do like Rise of Skywalker's ending for Han in terms of like an optimistic ending. But in
Yeah.
terms of like the physical death of Han Solo, um, that's to me is his character coming full round robin. Like, I don't know if Han and Leia could ever truly have a life where it's like they're domestic. I don't think so, and maybe that's why
Mhm.
they're in terms of like being a fit for each other is never going to happen per se.
Mhm.
But in terms of the character growth, yeah, the selfish smuggler who's like, I'm only doing this for the money. It's episode 7. He is the father trying one last time to kind
Yeah.
of heal his son's soul, and he knows he's not gonna make it out there. He probably knows like there's a good 90% chance he's gonna die. He's like, you know what? I gotta do this. I am doing this more. I am doing this for more than
Mhm.
just money at this point. I'm doing this for the galaxy, for Leia, for my son,
Yeah.
for my family. Um,
It's not even a question at that point.
right.
You know.
Even
Yeah.
Rise of Skywalker, which
I
again
mean,
is
he is hauling the Rathtars for some
right.
reason,
I
but
mean,
I mean,
that's
it's
more.
it's a gig, it's a job, right?
It's more of a backslide. But even
Yeah.
then, and this is why I don't like it when people say, "Oh, Han's just Han from Episode 4 and Force Awakens."
Yeah.
He quickly helps Finn and Ray pretty quick. He's
Yeah.
like the Han in Episode 4 be like, "Nah, you gotta pay me money." Like the minute he hears Leia, he's like,
Yeah.
"Okay, I know I gotta do this. Like he doesn't want to, but you can tell he just
I'm getting too old for this.
I gotta do it.
Yeah.
So, as Brett just said, toxic but not murderous. So,
but again, I don't know if they're that toxic. Frankly, I think there are toxic moments, but yeah, I mean, especially again by Return of the Jedi, they're not. So
right. So that's Han and Leia. All right. It's funny how we were all Phantom Menace prequel loving for a second because we talk about Anakin and Padme. Oh
Let's bring this back up again. Is Anakin even in this? Oh, he's at the bottom there. Okay.
Yeah, he's like a little shadow. Yeah. So, in my opinion, this is the most toxic because I think intentionally, in some ways, this is supposed to be the most toxic relationship of Star Wars. Yes, I will say that because obviously it doesn't work out. It's not supposed to be healthy.
It's supposed to be why he falls to the dark side. Spoiler: Anakin Skywalker at the end of Episode 3.
Exactly.
Comes Darth Vader.
All right. So here's kind of my controversial opinion about Padme and Anakin. This is the only one I don't understand. I understand almost every relationship and every shipping pair, both from a story perspective and even from a from a fandom perspective. I get why Reylo exists. I get why Sabine, I like how Sabine's called Wolfrin in the fandom, exist. I get Kanan and Hera in canon. I get Han and Leia in canon. I even get Luke and Mara in Legends. I don't understand this one. This is the one to me that feels the most. This needs to happen because the plot needs to happen and because Luke and Leia need to get born. This needs we need the mother. We need a mother character. And especially because I don't know what Padme sees in Anakin at all in Attack of the Clones, in Phantom Menace. I get why he likes her. Natalie Portman. And maybe also, and also, it's like, are you an angel? Well, I don't want to make fun of her. She's pretty. It's got some spunk probably a little bit, but what does Padme see in Anakin and Attack of the Clones, especially? It's there's one good moment where they are in the gardens of Naboo, and they're kind of playing around. Anakin's showing off. That's not the pair scene. It's the one where he's riding the bull, and they're having fun. They're rolling around the grass. It's cute. Okay, maybe it's he brings out her fun side. He can not be all the politician, senator, former queen all day. Maybe that's what they're going for. But then he goes into well, we need a strong leader who will make the galaxy great again and tell the senators what to do. And then later
to a future senator.
And then he's I killed all the Tuscans, the women and children too. I went into the cribs and vroom vroom. And she just okay. You are you're supposed to be a humanitarian, Padme. And the problem I have with this is, look, if you want to make it that Padme herself is maybe not a decent human being as we think she should be, that's fine. I'm okay if these are I would it'd been interesting if these are two not great people coming together and it's just gonna be bad for everything, but eventually she realizes, oh shoot, he's crazy and fascist. I gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
But Padme is played straight, the Leia and Luke of the trio. She is where kind of Luke gets his empathy from, and kind of that's why Luke is very much all about seeing good in Vader, even though I think a lot of people will be why dude. So it's this is why I understand that it has to be somewhat a toxic relationship, and probably the most toxic relationship. They actually do get married and try to be domestic, and you watch those Clovis arcs, it's yikes, Anakin's you are my wife, which again, you never saw Han Solo do that, and if he did, if he ever tried, Leia would kick his butt. But again, Han Solo actually never. I don't think I've at least in the modern books and stuff, I've never seen Han go, "Listen, you are my wife." Like,
Listen here,
yeah, like
or they'd be like, she'd be like, "You're joking, right?" She'd laugh at his face, which I
right.
think Padme does a little bit, but
But Anakin,
yeah,
he's full on goes like 50s husband.
yeah,
I'm the man of this house.
mhm,
Even though you're a careerist woman, and getting gender roles for a little bit. But yeah, the even the newer stuff
mhm,
doesn't make me believe their romance because I just don't see the foundations enough in
yeah,
a way that I understand the other two a bit more, even if you can still
mhm,
say there's problematic elements to both, which there are. Because I think
yeah.
almost all Star Wars romance is problematic. Because again, mostly written by dudes.
Yeah, I mean, I know again, Carrie Fisher had some writing input in this, but I guess her and Natalie Portman's input probably wasn't taken into account as much. I do see what you're saying. I do. Let me try and kind of resolve it, smooth it over a little bit. First of all, yeah, this is a great point. I do wish, I think E.K. Johnston, she had the opportunity to actually explore this, and she kind of kept Padme a little too lily white, a little too
Mhm.
just too perfect, I think. And that's the problem, is maybe our image of Padme is sorry, I'm just gonna take the comment off. Just because it's in the way.
Mhm.
um is I wonder if our image of Padme, or our sense of Padme, is a little too lily white. And I say women are more rational about all this, and I do believe that, but it's not always the case. It's not necessarily the case. And I mean, that's the thing, is that what if the dynamic is toxic from both directions, right? And what if, and it's interesting, we're talking about Valentine's Day, shipping, happy romance. We're talking about toxic from both directions, and kind of understandable from both directions. I mean, there is a theory in kind of, well, in relationship psychology and in romance psychology, that part of what we're trying to do with a partner is, at its best and its worst, be their parent and parent them, and get the support. So, well, like offer the support
Mhm.
that our parents offered us, receive the support that our parents offered us. So offer the support that they got from their parents, and it's not, obviously it's not the same. Where it get is it where it's healthy and wholesome is, first of all, when this is a book called Getting the Love You Want. I forget the author. This is this relationship counselors.
Mhm.
It's, I'm getting to Padme in a minute. Don't worry, I'm getting there. Um, it's healthy when it's both understood and within the bounds of mutual responsibility, for the pursuit of mutual responsibility and mutual reciprocal involvement with each other.
Mhm.
It's and it's healthy when it actually there's always this point in a relationship where, I mean, and the first fight, I think the first crisis, is where they say, oh, you're either doing the thing that I hated about my parents, or you're not doing the thing I expected from my parents. And to say, well, I'm not your parent, I'm someone else, you know uh
Yeah.
and for them to actually talk it through and say, okay, we're building something new, we're building something healthy, and uh building something that where we could become parents,
Mhm.
possibly, right? um to kids who are actually dependent on us and vulnerable and whatnot,
Mhm.
that we're all vulnerable, right? And that's kind of the point, is how we deal with each other's vulnerabilities. Again, it was saying with Han, he's in this very vulnerable place in Jabba's palace, and they're able to reconcile that, to a point. I think with Padme, we know with Padme, in the Phantom Menace, here's this kid who is being stripped away from his mother, right? This 9-year-old vulnerable dependent kid, no one's disputing that that's a place of, I need my mom. um
Mhm.
and that's the thing. I mean, that's also a step on the way to Vader, right? That's kind of
Right.
the point of, that's part of what is happening in the Phantom Menace, is him being ripped away from his mother at the age of 9, like
Well, he
that.
chooses to go, so he's not really being ripped away.
Yeah, he chooses to go, but it's still a major shock, a massive shock, right?
That's fair.
And we see that even in the temple scene, right? He may sing, "You missed your mother. Your thoughts dwell on your mother." Of course they do. He's a 9-year-old kid, first time away from home. Padme sees him and sees this kid. She doesn't have. I mean, she's 14.
Just 9 and she's 14.
Yeah, her sense of adulthood is emerging too. You know, yes, I mean it's right. I get it is a stark choice, but it's home, or it's also
Oh, yeah.
Tatooine with her mother, or Coruscant with the Jedi.
I know, yeah.
So, and so anyway, my point is, it starts off very much a the Japor snippet and the blanket and the temperature and everything. Her maternal instincts come out for Anakin. There when they're 14 and 9. She remembers that really makes a mark 10 years later, right? 10 years later. This really makes a mark, really impacts her, her drive, and she doesn't find anyone. Well, I guess maybe she does, but she does have this boyfriend before, but when she encounters him as kind of grown up, but still wayward, still not.
You're always
Not
that
all
little
there.
boy I knew on Tatooine.
Yeah, and he's still very angsty and this angsty teenager now. But and then they're about to die. They're about to be executed by the separatists here. All that, I mean, talk about a crucible. All that bubbles over, and and it's also a moment where they save each other and they support each other, and Obi-Wan's there too. And then the Grand Army of the Republic comes in and the clones attack. It's called a film called Attack of the Clones. It's a pretty good film too, by the way. Came out 22 years ago. And so I kind of, my point being is that from our outside perspective, if Sabe, and I think there might be, actually, this is where E.K. Johnston does go, is Sabe wants to sit her down and say, "What the hell are you doing?"
I like those moments. Those were good.
And this is her best novel. Queen's Hope is her best novel, and she wants to, but by that point they've drifted apart too. They've drifted apart, and just she no longer has that place in Padme's life to say that. She might have before, but at this point she doesn't. And certainly by the time of Revenge of the Sith, even partway through the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith, she doesn't have that place in her life anymore. And so and hopefully she would, Mon might have been able to say something, or somebody, and so, but they don't. And again, my point is there are incredibly powerful forces at work here, and we celebrate them. And part of Valentine's Day is celebrating how powerful those forces are, respecting how powerful those forces are. Our conventions about dating and marriage and whatnot are attempts to contain those forces, sometimes harness them. The forces exist. This is just evolutionarily. I'm not trying to exclude people, but I know when the forces exist initially as part of continuing the species. Now, of course, we understand that they're part of our identity, and there's a diversity of those identities and drives, and even people on the ace spec and whatnot. But and we are bringing up a good queer ship. Don't worry. But to say for Padme, yeah, she really wants to protect this kid, and that kind of continues on through. But also, there is also this other part to it, right? She is excited by him, the way I think Leia is excited by Han. Here is this guy who knows to take action, and I mean, again, Anakin in Clone Wars. That's the amazing thing about Anakin in the Clone Wars. We do get that heroic side of him. We do get that. I mean, it's swashbuckling. It is a bit more Han, it's for it's for the sake of preserving democracy too, right? It's still, the Clone Wars, they don't have those philosophical conversations. If they do, Anakin's kind of blunted or knows he's not as smart, or maybe he is, or knows maybe he needs to listen and learn better. Yeah, I think there's all that, and then of course the illicit part of this, and that's another powerful force is Anakin has broken the Jedi code. Joseph Scrimshaw in the Force Center podcast did a whole counsel, like Star Wars counseling about this. Anakin's broken the Jedi code. Part of his identity is in jeopardy if this relationship with Padme gets revealed. Padme, I mean, Naboo, they respect the Jedi deeply, and if Padme, and this was Joseph's point, if it comes out that Padme has been part of a Jedi breaking his vow of celibacy, that would just look really bad for the relationship between the Naboo and the Jedi. That's why Padme says that the Senate wouldn't let it, the Queen won't let her stand. She's right. Like she would have to. He's discredited. I mean, something that like the Naboo value the Jedi and their traditions and their traditions of celibacy, and so they wouldn't accept that, and so all these different things pulling them apart. Yeah, it's a scandal. That is unfortunate, and that's part of the tragedy. That's the thing. That's part of the tragedy is the scandal of these things that keep it hidden. And I mean, that's the thing with Obi-Wan, and that's the thing. Again, looking back, kind of what we were talking about an hour ago, right? Obi-Wan, he wants to do the best he can, but Anakin and Padme won't trust him because they can't trust anybody. And that's the saddest thing, that they don't trust him. So yeah, all these conflicts of interests. Yeah. So I here's the thing. It is confusing. I still find it compelling because it's the prequel trilogy. It's the story, this high romance story that is the prequel trilogy. That, yeah, I mean, it has to happen in order for Anakin to follow the dark side. We know, I think George was thinking this already, right? That
Luke and Leia have to be born, so
But I think what your point you're saying before, that attachment is what leads Anakin to the dark side. Is what brings him back. That the son of Padme, and only the son of Padme, can bring Anakin back in Return of the Jedi. So, yeah.
It's a good thing he was interested in Luke and not Leia. Otherwise, I think that would have gone down very differently.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, does Padme
depends on what Leia's upbringing would have been?
Does Luke have does Leia have the empathy that Luke does? Maybe, and that's another thing is empathy, right? And that's kind of what I'm getting at with the whole parenting connection thing. Is it's Padme's empathy that starts off being problematic, but it's Padme's empathy again on that Death Star that saves him. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. Red is very much, justice for Sabe, justice for Sabe all the way.
Greg Pak, amazing stuff with her.
Yeah,
and Mika Johnson too. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
I've always had to think of it as sort of to me, these are two young people who are being very stupid, and it's gonna be everyone's problem.
It's a little bit what's happening there. Yeah.
I mean, no, that is exactly what their relationship kind of becomes at the end. It is kind of more. It's both Attack of the Clones and a little bit of Phantom Menace, where it's sort of it confuses me. Less so Attack of the Clones. There is, I didn't want to, Jake Lloyd did not deserve anything that all the hate he got, and he was 100%, I protect that kid with all costs. Sure. But there is a part of me that always wondered, if they had gotten maybe a 14-year-old Anakin, and it was two teenagers, and you have this queen in hiding, and he's kind of the one he is doing the Han Solo, and I kind of think of he's kind of different because he's an actual kind of person who's going to talk to me like a real person instead of all these officials and officers and chancellors. And
that is a little bit what happens too.
Yeah, I think we do get that in more of Attack of the Clones a little bit more, where it's sort of Anakin is kind of one of the few, it's kind of you're the only people who can call me Padme. Like you're not Your Highness or Senator. It's like, no, only you can call me Padme. To quote
Again, I think a
to
little bit of that happens in Phantom Menace as well.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. They don't appear that much in Phantom Menace that much, though. I've realized. I think they get like one really good scene afterwards where he's talking about Mrs. Mom and he shows her the little
Yeah.
thingy. But yeah, I mean, but it is kind of the one that can't work, and to kind of continue with the third big one. Oh boy, it
Let's
it
go
is.
for it. Let's do it.
I mean, all the
Let's get into
romances
it.
kind of have this thing, and it's probably because again they're all written by guys. Of
Yeah.
girl meets dude who is different from all the other people and kind of fascinates them, and kind of goes into gives and kind of like intrigues a little bit. Now obviously the difference here, which is fine that we're talking about Rey and Kylo finally, is they never date. It's kind of funny how it's like they're in a people talk about relationship. It's like, well, they're not really ever in a relationship. They're always enemies. And eventually, the only reason she kissed him is because he kind of brought her back to life for like 5 seconds, and then he died. I guess you can say like maybe like it's sort of like the first fling kind of it's a first fling situation. It's like, in terms of a romance, kind of a situation, and I mean, people always, again, like I always said, why I get the other two is because, these two are kind of the most powerful Force users of their generation. There is sort of that dynamic between them, and also a dyad in the Force.
One's a Skywalker, one's a Palpatine,
Yeah. But, even beyond just that stuff, like that there is kind of that kinship there. Again, the age thing. It's all these romances have like an age problem. Weirdly, Padme and Anakin are strangely the one that bothers me the least, only because
only
like
5 years.
Well, yeah, but it's like that's my parents were 5 years when it's not like they dated when they were teenagers. They were like my mom. They were both out of college at that point. In their 20s, like if you're 20 and he's 25,
and at that point, like it doesn't.
And also, I think, again, with the timeline stuff, I do think originally the idea was, no, they're probably both supposed to be the same age, but then again, wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff has happened.
Talking about Rey, right?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of Kylo's age and Rey's age, because he's again 30, she's supposed to be 18. But I think that's more EU stuff and not the movie material, kind of having a bit of an argument with themselves. But I won't get into it that much, and we're just going to talk about the movies in and of themselves for a second. And I in a weird way, it is reverse Padme Anakin, except I don't think they could ever have the domestic happy life that some fans want.
Reverse Han Leia?
No, it's reverse Padme Anakin because at the end of the day, what does Ben Solo do? He's like, well, I know that I am not kind of wanted in the galaxy. Both my parents are dead, but I can give all my Force energy to Rey because, let's face it, and this is probably more than the novelization, but I'm going to take the movie's interpretation too, is his calculation is, look, I'd rather have a galaxy with Rey in it than me, myself, being alive. So Force energy, Rey lives, Kylo's like, okay, Rey's in the galaxy, I don't need to be here. Dead. Which, it is kind of the interesting thing is he's attached to Rey, but in a sense, and this is where, thematically, even if we can very much talk about the execution, where I do think it's kind of interesting, Ben Solo is able to outdo Anakin because where Anakin's like, I'm going to give in to the dark side to keep my wife alive and in my, house. Ben Solo's like, I'm going to use the light side of the Force revive Rey because I don't want her to die, and I'm okay if I don't live because let's face it, I suck anyway. But Rey doesn't suck, and the galaxy's better off with her in it. She can go revive the Jedi Order, New Republic 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah.
I can be one with the Force and just be with my parents happy. So, with my soul cleansed.
Mm.
So that's why I kind of like if Raylo is like the middle ground one for me. It's like if Han and Leia are like the least toxic and Anakin and Padme are the most toxic, then it's like Raylo's in the middle. But on the other hand, they never get into a relationship
Yeah.
really, and he dies, and Ray. People have the weird kind of interpretation for her, but I think Ray will remember Ben Solo, but she will also get on with her life
Yeah.
and build the Jedi Order. She got her friends. She's not alone. She got a Jedi Order rebuild. She got to scavenge.
Mhm.
She's got text to read.
Yeah.
She got
Yeah.
Force Ghost to chat with. She's gonna go on her life, and
Text to read. No, the different kind of text.
no, I don't think she's gonna. I don't think she's gonna go. She's gonna need to necessarily go world between worlds and like I'm gonna
Mhm.
save you, Ben Solo, and
No,
get weird about
that's
it.
not
Like
gonna happen.
if Ben Solo does come back, it's like, hey
Mhm.
Ray, I'm Force Ghost. I'm good. By the way, I have some advice for you about this new threat. So here you go.
By
Like
the way,
thanks, Ben, and then go on with her life.
yeah. So I'll just jump in here and say, it's interesting when you think of this. Your mind goes to Ben and Ray,
Mhm,
and especially what we see in that third act of Rise of Skywalker. That
mhm,
that's where things come out. And I can see they team up and they have a team up, and it does
mhm.
go well. If we'd gotten that Ben for a full film, if we've gotten him even more of
Oh, it would
him.
have been nice. Don't worry. Trust
Yeah,
me.
I could see it. It's interesting. It's called Raylo and not Ben Ray, or I guess, is it Ray Solo, Ray Kylo,
I
right?
think
And
it's Ray Kylo because it's
right,
Kylo Ren.
and that one I is completely nonsensical to me. So what you're saying about Ben, yes, I get that. That's a beautiful poetic. Uh,
Well, here's
sort
the
of.
thing, and I guess
Well, let me keep going.
no.
Oh, you go ahead. You go ahead.
No,
Go
no.
ahead.
I mean, this is Star Wars' failed attempt to try an enemies to lover romance, but not have a definitive end game for it.
True. Yeah.
Which is a good trope. It's an interesting trope. My favorite show of all time has that trope.
Mhm.
Um, but it's also between a man and a woman, and that causes problems. Without necessarily a planned end game
Mhm.
for Ben Solo outside of Darth Vader style death redemption
Yeah.
thing, then it doesn't really come off as great. But so I think the idea is like they start as enemies, they fall in love, and then Ben will turn to the light side and happily ever after. But let's face it,
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever going to work.
Even then, I wouldn't have liked it. I would have been like, I mean, I'm all on the side of Ben, who needs to be responsible for what Kylo Ren did. I'm on that part, and that was still part of my hang up with Rise of Skywalker a little bit. I think the Raylo thing, but even this thing is Raylo. It develops probably even before the Last Jedi. Definitely develops through the Last Jedi. Yeah, I mean, we got the powerful forces of Ray trying to fix Kylo Ren and trying to be his savior in a way that's different than the practical thing of Ben's parents, obviously. But closer to Padme trying to yank Anakin back from the brink here. I I always thought it was really weird and problematic that people went for this. I'm sorry to be blunt about it, but it was like, why? Like he gaslights her. He says, he puts her in and calls you're nothing except for me. Any sort of grasping of the hand would get her locked into this incredibly subjugated situation. And that's the thing with Ray. Yes, she's confident, and yes, she has strength, but her whole story is unlike Leia, especially. Her whole story is she doesn't fully know where she fits. She has to find, she finds her family, she finds her people, through Leia and through Finn and Poe, right? Especially,
Mhm.
she finds her people, but Kylo is a real threat to her sense of self, a threat to her sense of integrity.
Mhm.
That's not a situation where you want to go into. And so, I mean, I wonder if maybe it was kind of this sense of, oh, but what if? And we like to suspend our moral disbelief and say, I mean, that's the thing with Padme. I'm suspending my moral disbelief a little bit and saying, this is an interesting story of this flawed thing. Maybe if we got more of it, we only get the third act of Rise of Skywalker. Um, I get it. I mean, I can see a lot of it teased in the Force Skypes a
Mhm.
little bit. Clearly, she's drawn to him. Clearly, there's an attraction. I'm not going to deny that, but I
Well,
think,
I mean, and also let's face it, just as actors, Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver do have pretty good chemistry.
yeah, they do. All that I mean, the performance is there.
Oh yeah,
I'm not denying that. I'm just saying, why do like that's maybe I'm confused. Does Raylo mean that they think that this would be a good idea? Or
I mean, I
not?
guess it depends on
Yeah,
how people view Kylo Ren and Ben Solo with like the Vader Anakin thing all over again. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm not in that person. Like I know, like
right.
yeah, if Ray and
No,
Kylo got together, it would not be good. Um,
yeah.
Ray and Ben Solo got together,
But we
well,
don't really get, and that's the thing, we don't get really any Ben Solo.
that's
Who
true.
is Ben Solo? We don't know.
That's
We
true.
get a minute here. We get a moment of him, right? I think we do get, and the more he lets himself be Han with the Force,
Hmm.
in that when he's taking on the Knights of Ren, that's a cool moment. Like he's Han with a lightsaber. Sure, why not?
And even again, opposite Anakin, where he actually does
Mhm.
let go. And it's like, well,
Yes,
I'm gonna get the power to stop people from dying, but I'm gonna sacrifice myself doing it
yeah.
because
And again,
that's.
I do see that poetry, and I
Mhm.
I I do appreciate that poetry of it. Um, again, I would have. I think I would have liked. It would have been even more poetic if he stayed alive somehow. But
I mean, I think we would.
um,
I think we just all want Star Wars to give up on the death and
yeah, that's part of
redemption
it too.
thing.
And
We
and
just-
we've criticized Rise of Skywalker
Mhm.
way too much not way too much, a lot on this podcast. So I can let that one go too. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I will say this though, right? It's will admit, Raylo, it's not out of nowhere. That much I will say. It's it's teased. It's the energy, the nuclear buildup is there.
Mhm.
Um, it's just JJ doesn't quite, like you said. I mean, there is an enemies to lovers trope. Star Wars hasn't really done it, I don't think, yet.
I
Maybe,
hope they do enemies to lovers soon.
yeah. I mean, it's possible. Well, I mean, that's one of that's the queer ship we'll get to in a bit. That's enemies to lovers if they do it convincingly. Um, but yeah, Raylo, it's interesting. I'm curious. I'd like to ask. Maybe I haven't had the kind of conversations with Raylos. I'm like, oh, this is so toxic. Why would they want? What did they see? What are they hoping for? But I don't understand it.
I
So
mean, I probably wouldn't have been happy. I mean, like if I feel like the conversation would be different if even if we never got anything else,
mhm.
if like Ben Solo would just put in like a cell, but like
Yeah.
alive and like at peace, like not just like I think there is like there's like a weird. I mean, this is the fandom fan
Mhm.
fiction thing, of like fanfic happy domestic lives, that sort of thing with Ben and Ray, and then there's like Duel of Fate where they're just enemies and to kill each other. And I feel like the conversation would be different if like Ben had lived, but he was in a jail cell, so at least you can kind of get some atonement. And they would probably have some sort of maybe they're not like they're not in the hallway just kissing each other. It's like here's my boyfriend Ben Solo. But it'd be like at least he's trying. She's a little iffy about him still, but he's still trying.
Mhm.
He's because I would assume that if he had lived, he would want to try and atone. I get the
Yeah.
sense he probably I would hope so. Um, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna, I feel like the conversation would be very different if he had just lived,
He would
even if
be almost he'd be incarnate in a way. I mean, he'd be in this very vulnerable situation where he has to depend on other people for his well being.
I mean, yeah, I mean that
It would
again.
have been interesting. It would have been an interesting story.
It's the problem of I don't want to say not having a plan because I don't. Again, I am someone who kind of is in camp. They didn't need a plan. They just needed a third movie
Sure.
that could tie all the loose threads together. Which I know it sounds like you should have a plan, but it's sort of like no, you just need kind of more of a steady hand. Which sadly Abrams is just not that for a third part.
Mhm.
But if he had just lived, I think there's just people would have at least been happy for like you could do more with it, kind of like with
Yeah.
Han and Leia, and even trying to do stuff with Padme, Anakin.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's that. Do you want to get into the
I'll just say one
in?
more thing about this. Sorry, this is a good point to bring up, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Is
Go ahead.
whenever you give a female character, like they almost give Ahsoka a female, give Ahsoka a male love interest.
Mhm.
Whenever you do that, you risk reducing her, but
Yeah.
also not necessarily. I think depends, right?
I mean, that's the
Again,
criticism
Ben
with
would have
Padme.
had to be in this vulnerable situation where
Mhm.
he'd be in prison and he'd have to depend on the connection with Ray for him to, and with everybody. One thing that kind of makes me think of uh Jedi in Phase 2 of the High Republic, Gelen Atai and
Go ahead.
Axel Greylark a little bit.
And
Axel's
yeah,
in prison.
they got there's some interesting.
No, she's a Jedi, so it's a little different. But
Hey, Ray's a Jedi too.
well, that's I mean that's the whole thing. We've talked about this. Gela is a Jedi during the heyday of the Order, so
Sure.
yeah.
Sure, Ray hasn't
Sorry.
chastened the vow yet, but no, I mean you're right. I mean there is a little bit of Raylo in well, what's his face in Greylark a little bit, even down to constantly betraying them, and
Yeah.
although he kind of in a weird way that book kind of weirdly is kind of the best of well maybe not the best of both worlds, but like
Mhm.
kind of what I think would have been maybe a little bit more
Mhm.
interesting if Ed Carey had gotten to live and they decided to keep and not go full on Duel of the Fates. It's like not Ray and Kylo getting together. It's like, oh, here's my boyfriend, Ray.
Mhm. Yeah.
But kind of Ben
Teasing
at least
something
has
out,
his
yeah.
mom now. At
Yeah.
least he can kind of rely on her. Um,
Mhm.
Obviously, and that was one of the problems. That would have been another big problem with kind of putting Ben in the heroes camp after the movie. Is like he's kind of isolated if he only got Ray, where it's like, it's like
Yeah.
he should have befriended. He's not, like he could have befriended Finn and then Poe, and then like have a little bit more of a community around him because that's sort of the big thing
Mhm.
about redemption. And I think I don't want to make this too much about redemption, but kind of
Yeah,
romance and
that's a whole
redemption
other topic.
but I do think
Mhm.
community is a very
Yeah.
important aspect of that, and having some sort of community behind
Mhm.
you. But again, I won't go into that.
Anyways, you
I
wanted me to
think.
say something quickly about something?
Oh yeah, sure.
Well, what
What?
did you want me to talk quickly about?
Oh no, no. I just wanted to talk about. I don't remember. I was just talking about Greylark and the High Republic stuff. So yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
so especially in Cataclysm. I
right.
mean, like when they like Gela and I think it's Creighton go break him out of the prison,
Mhm.
and then he's going back with the path. Anyway, that's a spoiler for Cataclysm if you haven't read it yet. I don't know if you have yet, Joel. But anyway,
I read both of those ones. I've read both
yeah.
Cataclysm and yeah, we did that. But so yeah, I guess we should go to the the non movie stuff. Let's actually yeah, we got some time. Let's talk about Harry and Kanan for a second, if we don't mind. 'Cause I think Harry and
Mhm.
Kanan are interesting.
Yeah.
Very
And
interesting. Oh, go
okay.
ahead.
Well, I was
Especially
going to say the thing that makes them interesting, frankly,
Mhm.
to me is here's the first example, like Bring with Ray, right?
Mhm.
In contrast to Anakin, in contrast to to Gela and Avar and Elzar and them, and in contrast to Quinlan,
Mhm.
the order is gone. there's the the community, the family that
Mhm.
they're meant to be more of it, make themselves available to is gone.
Mhm.
And so what do? You find who you can when you can, right? Parent goals.
Exactly.
It's actually, and this is I had this funny moment. So season 2 of Discovery and season 4 of Rebels happened. I think it's season 2 of Discovery. Season 1 or 2 of Discovery and season 4 of Rebels happened about the same time.
Right.
I ended up loving season 3 and 4 of Star Trek Discovery.
Mhm.
I utterly adore them. Can't wait for season 5. But season 1, there's this wonky moment. I mean, here's the thing. I talk about, and this thing I've said this before.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm good with a romance story. I'm good even more now that I've worked on myself a lot more.
Mhm.
I'm good with characters sucking face all of a sudden if it's built up, if
Mhm.
it's led to, and if we can see it happening. And there is, well, first with Michael and what's his face, the guy who's the Klingon impersonating the Klingon. That's like under the spoiler. It's season 1 of Discovery is a mess. Anyway,
I've always heard that. If, like,
and
even
at some point they're sucking face, and I don't get it. Like,
Mhm.
where did this come from?
Mhm.
Even season 3
Mhm.
with Book, I don't quite get that.
Mhm.
But then in season 4 of Rebels happens at the same time,
Mhm.
and all through this series,
Mhm.
there's this banter back and forth. That moment in Trials of the Darksaber, not Trials of, yeah, Trials of the Darksaber, where she's all, "Are we parenting Sabine well?" All that. Just the way they just know each other and see each other, and even just given the origins of this shady former Jedi who's on the run, and Hera's this rebel, this heir to this rebel leadership. I'm talking about A New Dawn, the novel by John Zuckermiller, by the way. But especially in Rebels, then how far they've come. Just again, the banter, the connection, the responsibility that they've taken on
Mhm.
for taking on together, right?
Mhm.
This family that they've built together,
Mhm.
for them to finally get a moment for each other was so satisfying. It's
Mhm.
so wonderful, and it's one of the best kisses on screen in Star Wars. I think is when they finally get that moment, and to see Jason in the cockpit at the end of Rebels, and then of course in Ahsoka. Yeah.
And also say about Kanan,
Mhm.
it's funny we talk about, Kanan, the Jedi without the Order,
Mhm.
but even though he's married, though he literally has a kid, even though he literally, did the intercourse, this is where I think people
Did
get.
the intercourse? Sorry.
This is where I think people really mix the no attachment rule with
Mhm.
like marriage and you know relationships. Not that
Sure.
I mean, obviously, yes, the monk thing does. They do literally like take a vow, like don't do that, don't get
Yeah.
married, don't have the. But I think in like its most
Mhm.
basic form,
Mhm.
the idea is with no attachments. Anakin had attachments because he couldn't let go of Padme. He
Yeah.
literally did not want her to die. He wanted to hold on to her like a doll.
Mhm.
Uh, Caden, he loves Hera. He loves his family. He loves the rebel crew very much. But he knows that, you know what? Both in terms of like themselves making a sacrifice and himself making the
Mhm.
sacrifice, like he might not like it, but he might worry about Hera. We all gonna worry about our friends. But he knows like I think he'd be like, if Hera dies,
Mhm.
I know she died on her own terms because that's
Yep.
exactly what Hera would do.
True.
But if in that final moment, he's like, hey, I can do this. If I die, I get to keep you guys get to be safe.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not like a selfish thing. It's just like like if Hera died or if Ezra died,
Mhm.
they did it because they needed to do it. But also here I am. I'm gonna keep you guys safe. I'm gonna do the most Jedi thing ever and
Yeah.
sacrifice myself to keep you guys, my friends and family and loved ones alive. Which weirdly that's why I think makes Kanan one of the best Jedi because
Mhm.
he does do the Jedi thing. He let go, but not in like a oh let go, but just like I gotta
Right.
do what's right, and he did what's right.
He lets go purposefully, right?
Yeah,
He doesn't give up,
right.
right? He lets go. I mean, and I mean that's the funny. The Force rewards it, right?
Hmm.
The last thing he sees is Maul's lightsaber slashing his eyes out.
Hmm.
It's Hera. and it's that attachment. Again, I think what your point is that we make too much of uh detachment equals celibacy, when that was the practicality of the arrangement when the order was 100,000 strong, and you could always go to a temple and be assigned to a temple and have a master, have a Padawan, have whatever, have your group of Padawans, have your group of knights.
And I'm not saying if you make
There.
that vow, it's a bad thing again, or the
No. My
Jedi
point
monk, but
being is it made it made perfect sense. Actually, it
Mhm.
made a lot of sense,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
like the Pathfinder teams going bring back to phase 2, right?
Mhm.
You'll always have these connections, and you're just free to go and do what you need to do,
Mhm.
and be available to whoever, right?
Right.
And it no longer makes sense, and that's the it's just that it no longer makes sense when the order is the way it is. Here's the interesting real world example. Here is, just bringing the day job and thinking about this.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I mean, my church, any clergy can get married, whatever.
Mhm.
A lot of Eastern churches, priests are married. For Roman Catholics, it is interesting. There are conversations about, in more isolated areas, in the Amazon especially, there was a big, huge conversation about, okay, well, we encourage, because there's not a lot of priests in the Amazon, and the people there really do want priests. They do want their liturgies, and there's some things that priests can do that most people can't, and so the people there really want them. Um, it be more likely to draw people if they can get married, if they can have their spouse there, have their wife there.
Mhm.
So there's that conversation. That's a possibility, right?
Right.
For clerical celibacy is only something that started happening 1,000 years ago, um, because there were complications in terms of property rights and inheritance and things like that. That was really it. It's my point being, it's a practical arrangement that does have spiritual dimension to it, to say
Mhm.
being available, being open, being focused on something. I mean, that's another thing, that Christians and Buddhists and a lot of religions uphold, is actually these relationships will end. We will die. This is here's a foretaste next week. We're all gonna die one day. Our marriages, our relationships,
You don't
are
got your
whatnot.
Exegol clone ready to go? Got your
I do
essence.
not. I do not. And if I do, I hope there's no woman who thinks that's an acceptable arrangement. Good grief. And to say, okay, why not? I mean, part of the point of celibacy is to say, okay, well, what about, there's some good things about those things, the eternal things about celibacy that would that we can appreciate now,
Mhm.
and whatnot. It's to say it's not absolute. And again, there are contexts where it makes sense.
Mhm.
There's 1,000 years of tradition behind it, and weight of tradition behind it,
Of
for
course.
one church, and happens to be the
Mhm.
largest in the world.
Mhm, mhm.
But it's it's just it's a bit more of a practical, and it emerged from a practical thing. So when Canon and Hera second face, I loved it, because it was I know I say that, but
I want to read a
yeah,
comment if you don't mind.
yeah, go for it.
Biggest reason Hera and Kanan
Mhm.
work is that they are parents more than they are a couple. If that makes sense. Like we don't need to see them date on see the relationship develop. I mean, yeah, they're kind of.
Yeah,
Although I think I guess in John Jackson Mill, the New Dawn, that is the story where they kind of
yeah,
are at the beginning. But by the time you get to Rebels, it's like no, they got it pretty much figured out. They got the routine going. They're the couple who like
yeah.
they got it. They don't need to be like the young teenagers. And that's the biggest thing about Star Wars
Mhm.
with the big three that we talked
Sure.
about compared to Hera and Kanan is that I think not only are they doing romance, they're doing
Mhm.
young love romance. I know
Yeah,
it's weird to think about with Han and Leia, but they, in the context of the original trilogy, yeah, they're the young ones. They're them youngins. They're them youngins. Even though they look more like our parents.
Yeah.
Phantom Menace and Attack prequels, very much two young idiots who make it everybody's problem, and
Yeah.
and then with Rey and Kylo Ren / Ben Solo, yeah, there is that kind of young, dumb, stupid teenagers, even though technically Kylo's in the actual lore is 30, but we're writing him like a teenager because I think that was the idea at the time. But I do Ray when Hera and Kanan, it's like it's not young love. It's they're middle-aged parents now.
Mhm.
They're like they just enjoy each other's company and all they
Yeah.
need is a good coffee.
I mean, so the reason behind for that, this is a segue to our last pair. I think we should move on to that. Is
Unofficial pair. Let's make that clear.
yeah, we're shipping. This is our ship. I mean, these are two possible ships coming up here. Narcothans and Avenger. No, I'm just kidding. Can make that joke. That they're not the main characters. Hera and Kanan are not the main characters of the show.
Mhm.
Anakin, Padme, Han, Leia. I mean, Luke, Han, Leia, Rey, and Kylo. They're the main characters because Star Wars is, of course, primarily for younger people.
Mhm.
And the main characters in Rebels, they're a little too young. At this point, there's a bit more of a sibling dynamic at this point. But Sabine, Sabine's just not, she's just not interested in anyone at this point, I don't think. And so, yeah, it is more of that romance story doesn't come in to play. I mean, it also doesn't come into play with Ahsoka and Clone Wars. Again, celibate Jedi. But there's a reason. That's the reason why we don't get one of the reasons why we don't get parenting drama, right? So anyway, there's the segue. Can I take the segue? I'll take the segue.
Sure.
The ship. So there's two shipping here, two shipping lanes. Get the tugboats. Shipping lanes. I'll keep making that joke. So we know that Sabine and Shin are on Perodia together. And I'll let you talk about that, and then you bring up. When I saw Sabine and Ezra on that truck there going along, it was the banter, and I'm good. I'd be good with this. I'd be fine with it. I kind of see it, frankly. There's the banter. Yeah, they have this history as the sibling thing where they're in the middle of this war, and they had other things to do, kind of thing. And they were this sibling family. They've been 9 years apart, long time apart. They've grown up. They've understood themselves better. Ezra has been without any kind of human contact for a long time, and so yeah, I can see the better. Now they're separate again, of course. They shift flipped, but
15.
That's okay. So I can see Sabine and Ezra. I can see them if they're able to meet up sooner. That's the problem, and so that's one of the problems. I do think Sabine and Shin is interesting, so I'll let you talk more about them.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, we don't know what direction they're going to take these two. There's clearly some paralleling going on. You don't get those two looking at each other the same way without either some sort of what's the word? Some sort of like they kind of know what they're doing, or at least the actors and actresses do.
Planning.
Whether or not, well, I don't even know if it's forethought planning. I mean, although I do think like Dave probably has like a general idea of what he wants to do with Shin.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessarily romantic, but I definitely think he got an idea.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing that kind of helps. Is like you do kind of have the one creative person kind of, at least maybe got somewhat of an end game for Shin, even if it's not necessarily, them two smooching.
Sucking face. The word is sucking face. That's the phrase.
And we'll probably have a more podcast people guests who probably are a bit more qualified to talk about this than I am.
Fair.
But as a big fan of my favorite show, She-Ra, The Princess of Power, which is an enemies to lovers story arc written by LGBTQ plus people. So there's one thing again. But there is something to be said about when you do enemies to lovers, when it's female on female, there are certain dynamics that are different than male female enemies to lovers relationship. There's just, it's as they call it, a sapphic relationship, as my friends would call it. You know, again, we don't know what if that is the direction it will go for sure. There was, there's certainly, Sabine and Shin, they had interaction, but there's not like they were getting to know each other kind of a
Yeah.
situation. It was just kind of more they confronted each other in the beginning and in the middle. But then obviously kind of Shin kind of goes her own way. There's a little bit where it's Ahsoka's like, hey, you can come join us. I know you don't. I know you're kind of confused. We'll offer our friendship, but Shin's still in kind of that. I don't know what to do, but I'm out of here. Like I don't know what
Yeah.
to. I'm not quite sure what my place in all this is, and for some reason she decides to become part of the bounty hunter tribal people, while Galen goes off and finds some Morris guards to talk to the manager.
Talk
Cast
about
that. I need to talk to the father, please, about this whole force thing.
Yeah.
Very talk to the manager vibes with him.
Mhm.
So, you know, I mean people do ship them because obviously the parallels are there. They're the apprentices to these Jedi masters from the age before. They're both young.
Mhm.
They're both kind of unsure of what to do. Sabine kind of finds her place by the end.
Yeah.
Shin's still going on her journey very much so. She's probably not sure. I mean, she might link up back with the Empire again for all we know. But there is certainly, I think people latch on to that because it's like, okay, you got the parallels already. There's also just, I think there's some chemistry between them. People like LGBT, lesbian romances, especially, and enemies to lovers is kind of an online. It's kind of a trope that fans really eat up and romantically. Um, we've seen it, but I've seen it. None of my favorite shows have it for sure.
Mhm.
So there's already. So that is why I think that ship very much is people latch onto it very much so. Whether or not, again, it is the end goal or just the right now it's all projection. I'm going to just say that out front.
Yeah.
It's very
Sure.
projection, especially because we don't really know what's going to happen. Maybe season 2 might get more into that. With
Mhm.
season 2 kind of not even being written, I do wonder if Dave's looking at that and going, well, maybe I can find a way to kind of get it, but I still want to do this particular thing. Um,
Mhm.
you know, which again, I think again, this is well, I don't think necessarily having one creative overall or even a plan would have saved the sequel or not. I do think this will help at least kind of guide them, these characters, Sabine and Shin, in terms of where they want to go. Uh,
Yeah.
it might be nice to have some more LGBTQ writers in the writers' room, but um, yeah, and again, just I think the chemistry, we kind of hope that when if Shin, I think, and also I think it's not a situation of, and this is where I think Brandon Raylo gets a little, it's the problematic where this so far hasn't gone this way. It's like Sabine doesn't really care about fixing Shin or interested. I don't think
No.
Sabine is even that interested in Shin right now. But
Mhm.
I do think that if you put those two together in a room and they start talking,
You never know.
you never know,
Mhm.
and that's what I
Mhm.
think. I think that's what people want right now. Is like they just want those two stuck together and see what happens. I think they want those two to like maybe form a bond or something. Just kind of like get those two together in a room and see what happens, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's where that comes from. I think that's kind of I do hope at least that's sort of the next step myself in terms of like because clearly they do have something like I don't want to say they have something because I don't really have something, but you can kind of see the way they fight. It's like there's something there, or at least there you could maybe see something. It's like what
Yeah.
happens if she's not all mad and just they're not trying to kill each other? Like what will happen? So,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's what people want to see right now. Is like to kind of make an unofficial joke. Um, it is kind of the Callus Zeb ship that everybody loves, even though it's not really a ship, but everyone loves to pretend it is. It's like, here's my husband Callus. Um, but it is kind of but like Callus and Zeb, I think people want that moment where it's like Callus and Zeb, they tried to kill each other in season 1 and
Yeah,
2, but then that one episode where
there's
they're
an
together.
enemies to lovers in Star Wars.
Well, I mean, it is the closest, but
Yep.
that is kind of that thing of like these two had to work together, and then Callus kind of realized, oh yeah, maybe the Empire ain't all that.
Yeah.
Although they didn't really go all the way with it, but you know what I mean. I think we want that.
They started there. There's some pretty clear. I'll say there, and it is interesting. We're thinking about the contrast between Rey and Kylo, and I'm wondering why. But I'll think about why. But I mean, it is just well, yeah. I mean, I guess because it's like dark side user, last dark side user we're thinking about in terms of a ship. Maybe that's what it is. I know Red mentioned one of the differences with the differences in the dynamic there. I think I can think of two. One of them is similar to what you have said in that like Shin isn't really evil on her own.
That's true.
She's just part of what Balin's doing. And what Balin was doing, it seems kind of, we don't fully know. They're mercenaries. Yeah, they're with Thrawn, but they're kind of doing their own thing. We don't fully know what they're on about. There's the real world question.
I need to talk to the manager, the father, Mortis.
Yeah, there's the real world question. Yeah, and they're going for power. And for, yeah, and that, I think Balin is a little more explicitly dark side evil, weirdness going on. But I think sorry, I'm trying to get my train of thought here. Well, there's the real world question of what they do with Balin. There's that. But also, yeah, I mean Shin. So there's two things that are interesting. Yeah, Shin again, she isn't evil on her own. She's part of this group. Maybe because she's on Peridia now, cut off from Thrawn, cut off from Morgan's dead, cut off from the kind of what the gig was. The gig is over. She's now free to actually make her own choices more. And yeah, she was. I mean, I think there is the moment where she's tempted, right? So that's kind of what I'm getting at there. That's good. But also, I think to pick up more on what you're mentioning, there is this different dynamic, right? What we've talked about a lot in these, when we've talked about toxic dynamics with these relationships, there is the gendered power dynamic, right? Toxic masculinity. There just isn't that here. There isn't those historic dynamics at play. And so that creates more freedom for them to actually pursue something that's maybe healthy and interesting. The question will be, how will that affect the relationship between Ahsoka and Sabine? Will that introduce? I mean, will it not necessarily introduce something like a temptation for Sabine to go to the dark side or anything, but will it introduce a complication to her focus? Will it require Ahsoka to evaluate her approach to attachment and non-attachment, as she's been having to evaluate all through season 1? Right? One of the things, I mean, one of the reasons she wasn't willing to train Grogu, she stopped training Sabine. She doesn't join up with Luke's Praxium. She's very much on her own, and of course, season 1, she really confronts that. Right, she confronts the way her attachment to Anakin's attachment to her led. What was, she felt guilty about the way that led him to the dark side. She's confronted that. She's released herself from the responsibility of it, and she chooses to live. It'll be, to see what Ahsoka's response to this is. See if it contrasts with Balin or whoever, or the son, or who knows what. Maybe this would be interesting. Maybe it's Balin who's against Shin pairing up, and Ahsoka's in favor of it. An extra pair of hands. Again, it could lead to, really, the way complications are complications.
Right.
In just again the powerful forces at play, or an extra set of hands to get them off the rock. You never know. It's also possible. So
I have a few. I'm sorry, we're going on, but I have a few things I want to just mention. First off, yes, Red. I was in a She-Ra server with all my She-Ra friends. We were all Sabine all the way. But also, something about Shin that I think is different from Kylo. I mean, Kylo slash Ben and
Mhm.
Anakin, and it's something Red talked about here about the whole
Mhm.
first order situation right here. A little bit is
Yeah.
you know I don't want to like take away any personal responsibility Shin has for her actions,
Mhm.
but unlike Anakin, unlike Ben, they grew up in the moral light side before falling. They very much, they
Mhm.
made that choice of like, I had a good life, and then I'm going to toss it all away for evil, or
Mhm.
and you can say they had their reasons, but it's like they still made that choice.
Yeah.
I get the sense with Shin, and we won't know until we know. I have a feeling Shin didn't given a choice. I feel like I always kind of get the sense that Balin found Shin either as a little kid or
Mhm.
like maybe even as a baby and kind of just raised her to be this, and she kind
Yeah.
of has no option but to be kind of a feral, for lack of sorry to use this word, feral, the feral attack dog, kind of like Darth Maul in a sense, a little bit of Darth Maul, and
Yeah.
obviously you can't just take away responsibility for her own actions. Even Maul has to like eventually like hey Maul, you kind of brought this on yourself, buddy. But there's always that little tragedy is
Yeah.
to of you did not kind of choose this life.
Mhm.
It kind of found you and engulfed you, and
She's stuck in it. Yeah.
maybe that's at least in terms, and like kind of like maybe a little bit like Ventress had a good Jedi life for a little bit, but like unlike but like maybe like kind of like Ventress to a certain extent. um
Mhm.
uh you know it, uh
Yeah.
she can like
There's a
maybe
draw.
like realize, oh, this toxic environment I grew up in isn't good.
Mhm.
Maybe Sabine and her gang maybe are kind of a
And
nice,
it's
nice,
in a different
and
way.
Ahsoka obviously are the nicer places to
Mhm.
go. I'm going to help them,
Mhm.
instead of my master, who I have weird relationships with, but kind of respect. But at the same time, dude, I got to realize you're toxic. But yeah, that's my final point. I know
Yeah.
we're going long. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We'll wrap up.
That's okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think we could talk about it. There's a whole bunch we could talk about. We mentioned Avar and Elzar.
Mhm.
Um,
Do you have anything
Kelly.
for paper cannon before we wrap up? I feel like we
I
talked
mean,
so much
again, we could
through.
just quickly go through them. Things that come to mind in your notes. I mean, you have Avar and Elzar.
Mhm,
I mean, I mentioned
mhm,
Gela and Axel a little bit. That was interesting. That came to mind.
mhm,
I mean, High Republic is all over. It's they've really just really gone for it
mhm,
in a way that's so in a way that's compelling, convincing, really
mhm,
interesting. I mean, I talked about how Ezra and Sabine with Ezra and Sabine they just don't for either of those characters, not for each other, and I don't think they would have for each other in Rebels. But even nobody, you don't see any guy come up to Sabine at a bar or whatever. She's just too busy blowing up stormtroopers.
yeah,
Whereas these Padawans and young knights, or just not the young knights, these Padawans in High Republic, they're just going all over the place. It's amazing. It's actually it becomes it shows that this is a part of who we are, and that's
mhm,
why even as single dudes, we're celebrating this day and we're thinking about this day. You know the and yes, with due respect to everyone on the ace spec, and
oh
um,
yeah,
that's a part of who they are. Uh, this whole question, these kinds of attachments, part of who people are. And so, yeah, High Republic, the way and the freedom, especially the way these kids are able to explore and to express themselves. Even in that's the thing in the era, the masters recognize it makes sense for Padawans to go and explore stuff, and then for them and it's part of them testing, are they actually meant to be knights? Is the force actually willing them to knighthood or not? And one of the ways they test that is, are you able to give up this kind
mhm,
of attachment? And that is interesting that they actually, it's not that they're forced, it's that they come to a character moment, a character point. And for most of them it's kind of inevitable, and most of them it's not like that big of a challenge. I think, I mean, Cena Morella in High Republic Adventures at this point in phase 3, like now with Zine Morella, Zine and oh goodness, why am I blanking? Lula, Lula. But what's interesting with Lula, and nothing with Lula, and I'm wondering, I don't know, probably not with Vern, maybe with Avar. the Fall of Starlight Beacon. Fall of Starlight Beacon is it's interesting. It really has this effect. There's this impact. I think the Fall of Starlight Beacon is going to impact now that Avar and Elzar have reunited. After Eye of Darkness. Yeah, that might be. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there. They're both masters, so that would be complicated. But Zine and Lula's completely gone off the deep end. She's not really part of the order. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that's the thing. In a healthy context. Yeah, and John Paul did too. And there are healthy ways of that's another thing about celibacy, right? There's healthy ways of actually getting them there. If they need to be there. Because it's understood that that's just part of what for Roman Catholic priests, it's just part of what it is. And so there's still the supports and the attachments, friendships, right? Anyway, to say High Republic, if you want some really well written teen romance, even I connect to, just as connecting to these characters, these really well written characters. Yeah.
And Lost Stars. Don't forget Lost Stars.
And of course Lost Stars. I mean Claudia Gray. Come on. I mean that's the that's the gold standard. I think that's the gold standard for a Star Wars novel. It's a gold standard for how to do romance in Star Wars. That's enemies. Well, not really enemies to lovers, but man,
that's friends to enemies to lovers, kind of.
That's childhood friends, and man, yeah.
Yeah,
that's the cause. We could do a whole episode on that one.
Yeah. I will read that book, and then we will do a whole episode for sure. But
it's interesting. I'll say one last thing then.
Okay,
I mean, there's a lot about Lost Stars that really needs to pick back up. There's a lot of Lost Stars that they just haven't done as well. Yeah, again, High Republic has done a lot of good stuff. It still hasn't hit the height the Lost Stars hit. And then on screen really hasn't hit the height that Lost Stars has. So, yeah, sorry. Anyway, that's my last point.
Yeah, so I think that's it. I guess just to kind of sum up everything. Star Wars and romance. Has it been good? Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you write space opera romance. That's in terms of the films and the TV sides a little bit. That's what happens when you write space opera romance, mostly written by guys.
Has it been good? It's complicated.
It's complicated. It's complicated. It's messy. I mean, I'll just say this. Regard of, in terms of just love itself, love is complicated, and I hope one day we get a writer director, hopefully, who can really with Lost Stars, but also maybe in a different sense, really write just the complexities of love and the deep, messy emotions that come with it. In terms of I mean, sometimes
but in a mature way through it is the thing, right?
Yeah, and where it doesn't come off either as you're okaying toxic relationships or or just kind of oh, now he's good, oh, he's light side he turned off the evil switch. But it's complicated. Star Wars hasn't been great at it. I think honestly the best romances are either the ones without romances or where it is kind of Kate and Hera, they're just parents at this point. But yeah, that has been kind of one more thing. Sorry, I gotta talk about the best romance of all Star Wars. Akbar and Winter. Legends fans.
Nice.
Akbar and Winter. But yeah,
I don't even know who Winter is.
that's Leia's confidant friend in Legends.
Nice. Okay.
She's kind of also a big spy and kind of Jason and Jaina's nanny. But anywho, yep, that is the complexities of romance in Star Wars. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Red, especially for all the great insight in comics. We love hearing from you. Come back next week. The next week will be a very interesting topic. And do you want to say, Matthew, what our next week topic is?
Well, so I'll do the normal outro here.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, I'll do that then. Yeah. No. So I'll do the normal outro. Yeah. So again, echo thanks for everyone, and I agree. Yeah. Thanks for great interactions in the comments. Yeah. A lot of insights, a lot of things we can get into. I'm curious to know, if you're married in a relationship, let us know what you how you react to Star Wars and the
Mhm,
big three and the big three trilogies, but also all over the canon.
mhm.
In the comments below. Comments aren't going anywhere. Right there in the YouTube and the Facebook and Twitter and Twitch, etc. So let us know either at Iron Cannon Pod or at
Mhm,
the SWU or here on this Underworld YouTube page.
mhm.
Yeah, we can follow us at Ion Cannon Pod, EYEONCANON POD on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Specifically, Joel, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me at JID2021, again, JID2021 on Twitter. And of course, at the Ion Cannon Pod, again, at the Ion Cannon
At Ion
Pod
Cannon Pod, not at
on
the Ion. Sorry.
right, at the Ion Cannon Pod on Twitter. And of course, you can always find me on the Star Wars Underworld Discord, where I will always reply. I didn't actually get any replies.
Oh well, next time we'll keep
March.
the challenge up. We'll keep the challenge up next week. Yeah, at Ion Cannon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD. Bit of a mouthful. That's fair. Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram and Threads at MNAUG1138. Talking about Taylor Swift winning the Super Bowl is a thing that happened. Sort of. Twitter NEG485. Again, at Ion Cannon Pod. Yeah, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Again, next week. So also, well, I should mention Tractor Beam this Wednesday right here on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel. If you haven't given this video a like, please do share it widely. Give this channel a subscription. Just free, hit that button, or YouTube memberships. We got that too. Please do consider supporting us as well. Yeah, this week on the Tractor Beam, Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. If you have nothing better to do, if you
Mhm.
do have something better to do, please do that. But if you have nothing else better to do on Wednesday night, you're welcome to join us 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, talking comics, giving our thoughts, giving our comic book reviews. Yeah, so until then, next week, Ash Wednesday is Wednesday. We'll be into the season of Lent. Where I'm going full bore. I'm going to talk about. I think I'm just thinking about an extended theology time, just reflecting on death in Star Wars and Lent and letting go of the power of our lives and how that leads to new life. And hopefully not get too
I'll,
preachy, but if I get preachy, that's what I do. So,
Unless you're the Emperor and you're sitting in your Exegol clone, waiting to get regenerated.
well, or Palpatine's refusal to die.
The old man won't die.
There we go. So yeah, just the theme about death in Star Wars, and it won't be dour. It won't be like I don't see this as a dour topic. I don't see it as inherently dark. It's not always the most fun, but I think meaningful and important to talk about. And so
Well, no
Lent is
one's
always
ever
a
truly
great time to
gone.
do so. Yeah, that's true. That's another theme in Star Wars is new life and eternal life and the good thing that is. So Lent is always a good time to talk about that, a good time to think about that. So we're gonna dive right in. I haven't done one of those. I mean, my old podcast was kind of all about that. So be good to reach back into that. But yeah, so check that out right here, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern next Monday night. It'll be Family Day in Ontario. That's a whole other thing. Um, that's another story. I'll have the day off, so I'll be nice and refreshed and ready to
Go to
go.
your local Jedi council, ask your Jedi master to put your ash on your head.
There we
That
go. Yes,
well,
that's what I'll be doing on Wednesday. And then yeah, Monday night. So yeah, check us out. Please come back. Of course, the flagship is going Thursday night, 9 p.m.
mhm.
I don't quite know what they're talking about, but if you want to get your questions in, Discord's a good place to do that. Um, yeah, get your questions in, ask SWU, and they'll get to them. I try and think of a troll question every week.
Mhm.
See if it gets in. They usually do. All fun and games. Yeah, so check that out right here on this YouTube channel, etc. Everywhere else. So yeah, and then please do check out the Ethan Sachs last two plugs. Check out the Ethan Sachs interview also on this page. That was this past Wednesday. Chris and I think we did a pretty good job. Ethan was great. It's
Oh,
also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You got
I
one
got
more
one.
plug to go?
Yeah, since Brett has been in the comics and so nicely, I guess I can't say what I have to say. Check
Yep.
out last week's Ion Can Pod where he was my guest and we talked about Tom Veitch's Tales of the Jedi. There was
Yeah.
there was romance in that one too, but
Yeah.
wasn't part of the plot in the big way.
That's fair. That's fair. Yes, definitely check that out. All of our Iron Canon episodes are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I believe Apple Podcasts still. So give that a look. Again, next week, Ash Wednesday, Lent, Death, and New Life. Until then, Joel, let's blow this thing and head home.
I've died before.